so that we do not interrupt the meeting. Thank you very much, and we should be getting started in just a minute. Ready? Okay, good evening and welcome to the June 6, 2017 council meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody here. Please rise for a pledge of allegiance to the flag and remain standing for the invocation by Councilmember Pogorlich. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in prayer. Dear Lord, as we gather this evening, we ask for your blessings on our community. We thank you for this incredible country we live in and are grateful for all that we enjoy. We ask that you bless and protect our officials and employees as they provide the day-to-day services to our amazing city. Bless our citizens and guide us in your ways. We also ask that you comfort and give strength to all those touched by the recent terrorist attacks and the unfathomable acts of workplace violence. We ask that you protect those that serve in our military, those that protect our freedoms, which you have blessed us with. All this in your precious name we say amen. Amen.
Just I'd like to take a quick note of personal privilege before we get into the meat of the agenda tonight to try and explain to everybody the status of what's going on. As a reminder, if you want to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, please go to the back. There are forms to fill out and turn them over to the city clerk at the end of the dais to my left. Just so you know, we're sitting here. I'm currently the vice mayor of the city of Temple Terrace. On May 18th, Mayor Kim Linebaugh submitted a letter of resignation to the city of Temple Terrace due to family health issues. He cannot overemphasize the great pleasure and honor that he has experienced serving Temple Terrace, and he has the utmost respect and admiration for his fellow elected officials, staff members, and great citizens of our community. He and his wife will continue to reside in Temple Terrace and keep this their home. Because of this, our charter, and I just want to say a few things about Kim real quickly. As a police officer, I served under Kim Linebaugh when he was the mayor. As a council member here, Kim Linebaugh served under myself and other members of the council, and as mayor here, we work together cooperatively as a team for our citizens. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Kim Linebaugh and his family, his integrity, his commitment and dedication to this city, and his commitment to his family. I wish them all the best. Now to explain, basically, our charter does provide for the situation of the absence of the mayor in which the vice mayor will take over. Last year in November, we had election for vice mayor. Due to alphabetical privilege, I am your vice mayor. I will be acting as the mayor on his behalf until we can go ahead and hold a special election. Later in the meeting, we'll be talking about that in greater depth, about the process that's involved there. So if you want to stay and listen to that, it'll be pertinent information for everybody. I'm going to do a lot more talking this evening than I normally do, so I ask everyone's indulgence to abide with me here, and we'll get to the meat of the agenda now. Thank you. The first item we have is recognition of Captain Greg Pauley as the 2016 Police Officer of the Year. Chief Albano will present the 2016 recipient of Thomas L. Lewis Police Officer of the Year Award. And while we're getting ready for that, I would like to read this. Captain Greg Pauley's job performance in the year 2016 was nothing short of outstanding. His day-to-day responsibilities as the Investigative Service Division Commander are both challenging and time-consuming. He meticulously manages his division's budget as well as that of the entire department to include the approval and tracking of all requisitions and the timely payouts of all invoices. The database engineered by Captain Pauley is utilized by all members of the command staff for the management of their respective budgets. Captain Pauly was also charged with crafting an RFP soliciting bids for an integrated records management, report writing, and computer-aided dispatch system to meet the needs of the agency. Countless hours are spent defining the statement of purpose, scope of work, deliverables, outcome, and performance standards, and other facets of the document to ensure the bids received fulfilled our requirements. After the tedious evaluation and award process was complete, Captain Pauly worked tirelessly to ensure the language in the contract spelled out exactly what was expected from the vendor. Following many revisions and consultations with the city's attorney, the contract was signed with Mobile Tech to be our RMS, CAD, and report writing software solution. Since that time, Captain Pauly has been diligently working with Mobile Tech Hierarchy to build the implementation schedule to meet an anticipated August 2017 go-live date. Captain Pauly's law enforcement career spans over the last 29 years, with 28 years of service to the city of Temple Terrace. During the course of his career, Captain Pauly has held many positions in both patrol and investigative services. His duties have included a vast variety of enforcement, investigative, and supervisory assignments. Captain Pauly is currently the division commander of the Investigative Services Division, where he oversees criminal investigations and special enforcement activities. He's a lifelong resident of Hillsborough County and has been married to his wife, Nicole, for 15 years, and they have one son, Connor. I believe both Nicole and Connor are here this evening, and I congratulate Captain Pauly, and have spent many years working with him, and this is long overdue and goes to a great candidate. I believe, Chief, now it's you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. It's an honor, quite frankly, for me to be able to stand here tonight and to bring forward someone for you to recognize that I've had the privilege of knowing for 29 years. He is the epitome of a law enforcement professional. And I, too, echo what Mayor Boss just said. It is long overdue, because as long as I've known Greg, I've never known him to fail to excel in any assignment and anything that's been requested of him in service of any citizen, no matter how big or how small the call. Some of the things that Captain Pauly actually does for us, I mean, those of you that are familiar with MacGyver, he can create. If you've ever been to the third floor, you'll see we had some new windows put in, and we could not come up with a solution for a little pass-through area. Nothing that we could see on the market would quite do the job. And he took it upon himself to go home. I think Connor helped him a little bit, and he came up with what looks very, very good and works very well to secure our third floor and those windows. That's just an example of something that he does off the cuff. But there is really, I haven't come across something yet that this man hasn't been able to do. I'm sure there is. I mean, no one's perfect, but Greg Pauly is well deserving of this honor. I could speak and I could write pages upon pages of some of the things that he does, but instead of boring you with a long, drawn-out description of how deserving this man is, I want to bring him forward with his family, Nicole and Connor, because we're honored. We're honored and we're privileged to have a man of his caliber serving with us, and we only have one more year of that. He is set. He is timed out. When his drop is done, then he'll no longer be able to be here as a law enforcement officer. But it's truly been an honor knowing him these 29 years, and the citizens of Temple Terrace and this agency are blessed to have him as a member of our department.
Wow, how do you top that? First, thank you for this recognition. This is very important and very humbling to both me and my family. I'm going to try not to get too emotional, because this is quite a culmination of efforts over the course of my career that have led me to stand before you today. I have to tell you that what has led me here is not my work alone. I could not be here had it not been for all of the fantastic people that I work with. I stand before you and I tell you beyond any doubt, now I know there's going to be maybe a little disagreement from one of the council members. But the Temple Terrace Police Department is absolutely the best law enforcement agency in the area.
You just lost it, Brandon.
Sorry, Councilmember Ross. But I truly, in my heart, believe that. I always have. And I have worked 28 of the last 29 years for this community. And it's been an extreme privilege. The last thing I'd like to say is I have not been able to achieve my accomplishments without the support of my family, my wife Nicole, my son Connor. Thank you.
I just would like to say one thing, and for the public out here and those watching on TV that may not know or even in some cases care about the inner workings of the police department, that this project, this mobile tech project that Captain Polly headed up, also resulted in several $100,000s in savings for the taxpayers of this city over the life of this contract. So while it's a better product for the officers, most of us won't ever see the product, but we will see several $100,000s in tax savings. So I'd just like to point that out. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a significant certificate of recognition for former chairman of the Municipal Code Enforcement Board, Rick Gibson. He will term out on June 8th, just a few days of this year. And he, having completed his third consecutive term, Mr. Gibson has served on the Municipal Code Enforcement Board since 2007. This certificate of recognition is for service over 9 years to the citizens of Temple Terrace as a member of the Municipal Code Enforcement Board. Mr. Gibson is here. I'm going to come down with his certificate of recognition for him. And it is in recognition of 9 years of outstanding service to the citizens of Temple Terrace, a member of the Municipal Code Enforcement Board, from September 19, 2007 to June 8, 2017, awarded the 6th day of June 2017 by the City Council. Thank you, Mr. Gibson.
It has been an honor to serve Temple Terrace as a board member, and several boards actually, the Code Enforcement and the Board of Adjustment. I've served as chairman and board member, and I've really been proud to help the city along, and look forward to still participating in the city in some way. I was asked earlier, what's my next step? And then I kind of remember that 3 members of this council out of 5 have been past chairmans of the Code Enforcement Board. So you never know. So, no, I'm not announcing anything yet. But it's just a coincidence that they all know that it's been an honor to serve Temple Terrace. Thank you.
We here as members of council and citizens are always appreciative of all the members who serve in our volunteer boards. Without them, it would make a very difficult job for all of us here in the city. Thank you very much, Ms. Gibson. Next on the agenda, we have a proclamation in honor of National Garden Week to the Temple Terrace Garden Club President Sherry Donahue and other Garden Club members, who I'll let you introduce. And can you please have them come up, and you can introduce them when we get up there. We'll read the proclamation really quickly, because I'm from the north and we read quick. Gardeners have a passion for nurturing the beauty and resources of the earth through the planting of seeds, the care of all plants, and the riches of their efforts. And gardeners seek to add beauty, splendor, fragrance, and nutrition to our lives through the growing of herbs, vegetables, foliage, and flowers. And gardeners work to preserve our country's traditional spirit of independence, initiative through innovation, and hard work. And gardeners advocate the importance of all creatures, large and small, that share our world and their roles in a balanced and productive ecology. and gardening furnishes a challenging and productive activity for our citizens, for those just learning as well as those having years of experience. And gardening promotes a healthy lifestyle that lasts a lifetime, helps reduce stress for other areas of our life, teaches that rewards can come from diligent efforts, and gardening enables members of garden clubs across the nation and the world to make a difference in the communities where they work and reside. Therefore, be it resolved that in an effort to acknowledge the importance of gardening and the numerous contributions of gardeners, National Garden Clubs Incorporated designates the week of June 4th through 20th, 2017 as National Garden Week. Come down there and present this to you.
Well, why don't we go down there?
Yep.
For the photo op, you know.
All right, sir, we're going to go down there. I'm going to get my steps in.
Marcy Lieber's the only garden club member in town. Thank you very much.
Would you like to say something to?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would. The City of Temple Terrace and the Temple Terrace Garden Club have a very long history working together toward the beautification of our amazing city. And I just want to tell you that it's a real joy to work with the city and to have the support of the city in all of the garden club's issues and efforts. So thank you so much. I'm honored.
And just real briefly, your name, please. Or you can announce your name.
Oh, Marcy Lieber, for the record.
Marcy Lieber from the Garden Club. Thank you, Marcy.
If I could say something while you're shuffling?
sir. Please do.
Since we have such a big audience tonight, if you want to just see one small little thing that the garden club does, drive around the roundabout. That used to be tumbleweeds. And now it's beautiful. So it's just one of the many things that the garden club does for the city and keeps it looking pretty. So thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a proclamation recognizing 2017 Hurricane Awareness Month, and this will be presented to Chief Ian Kemp.
Come on up.
So, come on up while I read this off to you. Basically, it says, whereas with $175 billion in potential losses, the Tampa Bay area is the most vulnerable metro area in the nation to storm surge floods caused by once-in-a-century hurricane. That's the conclusion from a recent study by Karen Clark and Company, a Boston-based firm that specializes in modeling the likely property damages and losses from windstorms, earthquakes, and other catastrophes for the insurance industry. Analysts estimate that the Tampa region could suffer higher losses than New Orleans or New York City, the next two most vulnerable cities on the KCC list. And whereas forecasters predict 12 named storms, including 6 hurricanes, 2 of which are predicted to attain major hurricane status, Category 3 or stronger, the Tampa Bay region faces the tremendous challenges of evacuation, response, and recovery in the coastal metropolitan region. The region supports emergency preparedness and mitigation of all risks, including natural, technological, and human-caused hazards through projects and programs, including Tampa Bay Prepares. And whereas our residents should be informed and empowered to take steps to keep their families, businesses, and communities safer and more resilient, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council's adopted growth policy, Future of the Regions, is aimed at ensuring the maximum degree of public safety for all citizens of the regions. Whereas since June of 1979, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, guided by the 4 county emergency management agencies and the Regional Emergency Management Committee, has undertaken a series of planning projects aimed at the comprehensive emergency management of the hurricane hazards confronting the Tampa Bay region. And whereas the key of the success of any hurricane's evacuation plan is informed citizens, the 2017 Disaster Planning Guide will be produced and distributed region-wide in 8 counties and 2 languages in early June. Now therefore, I, Robert M. Boss, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Vice Mayor of the City of Temple Terrace, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2017 as Hurricane Awareness Month in Temple Terrace to increase public interest and understanding of the hurricane hazard. Chief, I'll have to write down there.
Yeah, I don't know
if that's something we want to clap for.
Well, we got to clap for being prepared.
Yes, okay.
They do a lot of work to make sure everyone's informed of all the stuff that goes on with their emergency meetings, planning with all the people. So if you'd like to say a few words.
I just want to
Everybody aware.
thank you very much for this proclamation. This is the Citizens Proclamation. This is a reminder to everybody that there's only so much that we in emergency management, the fire department, and the police department can do. I want to make sure that everybody understands there is some responsibility of those that live in this community to please be prepared. Make sure you understand the evacuation process. Make sure you understand where our shelters are, where our pet shelters are. You cannot bring your pets to regular shelters. And also make sure you have the gasoline, if you need the gasoline for generators, and also food and water for at least 3 to 5 days. Very important. And if you need any questions or have any questions or would like to talk to anybody in the fire department, please stop by anytime and talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next on the agenda is an award from the American Planning Association for Imagine 2040 City of Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. From the Hillsborough Planning Commission, Executive Director, I believe Melissa Zornita is here. And she will present the city with a plaque for the American Planning Association for gold recognition for Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Hi. Good evening. Melissa Zornita, Executive Director of the Hillsborough County City County Planning Commission, and I'm joined by your Planning Commission representative, Trent Green, and our Chairman, Mitch Thrower, and our staff liaison to you all, Temple Terrace. I feel like I've got an entourage here. This is cool. We're thrilled to be here this evening to share this award with you. The American Planning Association is the national organization for planners that does education on planning and trying to create vibrant quality communities. And they started a recognition program for comprehensive plans called the Sustaining Places Recognition Program. And we submitted the Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan as part of that program. They evaluate, a team of planners from across the nation evaluate those submitted comprehensive plans based on how they embody the principles of livable built environment, harmony with nature, resilient economy, interwoven equity, healthy community, and responsible regionalism. And we're really proud because Temple Terrace was awarded the only gold level recognition in the entire country. So this is really, really exciting for us planners. They highlighted things like your connection between your land use and transportation, your multimodal district, your focus on trying to create a vibrant mixed-use downtown, your preservation of your historical and natural assets as those key tenants really embodying everything that they wanted to see in a comprehensive plan. So we were thrilled to be at the National APA Conference where they gave us this, and we wanted to share it with you all. So
Great, thank you.
great, thank you.
I didn't know you were doing so much longer.
Kind of a baptism on fire tonight, isn't it?
And again, I'd like to thank everybody from the Planning Commission that works very cooperatively with our staff and members here of our city to make things plan for the future in the long run. Some things take a little bit longer, but we eventually will get them done through good planning. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Next up, we have a Municipal Code Enforcement Board appointment. This is there's a vacancy on the Municipal Code Enforcement Board. Due to the term expiration of Sean Lloyd, Mr. Lloyd is eligible to serve an additional 3-year term and has indicated that he is interested. The city did not receive any other applications. I don't know if Mr. Lloyd is here and would like to speak or not. Okay. If there's, I would ask for a motion to approve the appointment of Sean Lloyd to the MCEB for term extending from June 8th, 2017 until June 8th, 2020.
So moved.
Motion.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? That was moved by Councilman Ross, seconded by Councilmember Gorlich. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Thank you very much for Mr. Lloyd's participation. Next on the agenda, we have a Riverwatch Task Force alternate appointment. There is one vacancy as an alternate on the Riverwatch Task Force. The city received one application. That is from Catherine Rodders Turner. I believe she is here this evening. Thank you. If you would like to come up and say anything, you're welcome to.
Hi, thank you so much, City Council, for reviewing my application. I'm a new resident of Temple Terrace. My husband and I just purchased a property in River Hills, and I'm looking for ways to get involved. So thank you for considering.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I would ask for a motion to approve the appointment of Catherine Rodders Turner as an alternate member of the Riverwatch Task Force for term extending from June 6, 2017 until June 6, 2020.
Move to approve Mrs. Turner as an alternate to the Riverwatch Task Force for the term described.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Ross, second by Councilmember Donahue. Is there any further discussion on this? Any discussion? See none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for serving.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, item 2 is approval of the May 16th, 2017 City Council meeting minutes. If there are minutes are acceptable, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion is approved. Thank you. We now come to the part of our agenda, which is persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. If you do want to speak before council, there are forms in the back to turn into the city clerk. If it's an item not on the agenda, right now I have 5 requests. I will call them up as I can. And when you come to the podium to speak, please give your name and address for the city clerk. The first is from Robert Berlin, the redevelopment, please. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Robert Berlin, 11795 Raintree Drive. A couple of quick things. I'd like to thank Mr. Boss for taking over as mayor. Number 2, as far as the offers we got for the RFP, I hope City Council picks the correct offer. We still want the multi-use, multi-level deal down there to make it, we want to make it a nice downtown area for people to want to go. We want to make it nice for people to go to restaurants, shops, and apartments or whatever. We just want it to be a nice downtown. A third thing, there are times when people are not home to watch the council meetings and are unable to watch the meetings at home, or also to come to meetings. I'd like you to consider broadcasting it on Facebook, so that when we are away, we are able to tune in. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have, I believe, it's Kate Turner?
It's me, same person.
Okay. I just had to check on the spelling here. It's easy when it was typed out to read it.
Yeah,
Please give your name and address.
So it's,
3 minutes, please.
Catherine or Katie Roders Turner, 340 Ferncliff Avenue, Temple Terrace 33617. So thank you again for letting me speak. I'm also going to be speaking about the redevelopment. I just moved from Seminole Heights with my husband and our small son. He's 1 year old. And we were very excited about coming to the area. We were really attracted to the space of the homes available. Also, the streets are so quiet, so close to the river. But it was definitely, we had to consider it with a really critical lens. We loved our community in Seminole Heights. We did a lot of like fun event planning that we still do in coordination with the Downtown Tampa Partnership in downtown. So we were concerned about leaving that area, but we made the move and we're excited to be here. With that, though, I also know that there are bids being accepted and reviewed now by City Council in regards to the downtown area. And I'm hoping to have other new young professional families come to Temple Terrace as they maybe move from places like Seminole Heights because prices are rising. So I strongly urge City Council, when reviewing the bids for redevelopment, to think about what the future of Temple Terrace holds. I would love to see a walk, bike-friendly, multi-use, multi-level district right downtown that I could take my son to on the back of my bike. That would be my perfect vision for what life looks like in Temple Terrace. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a Mr. Todd Yorker would like to discuss 510 Hibiscus Drive. Mr. Yorker, are you here? Yeah. Thank you. Please name and address. Thank you. And you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Todd Yorker of 518 Hibiscus Drive. I wanted to talk about recent events that have taken place at 510 Hibiscus Drive. Through the years, we've had a lot of situations of dogs running loose and scaring the children. I have 2 young daughters, and this really started limiting our access to the streets. This has been something that we've been doing our best to confront, and since then, situations have gotten incredibly worse. It seems that there have been boarders now brought in at 510 Hibiscus Drive. Once these boarders have arrived, it became even more unsafe due to residents being visibly unstable. One time a resident was standing outside in nothing but dirty underwear and looking incoherent. In this situation, my elementary school-age daughter asked, "Why is that man outside with no clothes on?" I couldn't answer. In the past months, we have witnessed 13 boarders. Some move in, some move out. After they move out, more come back. We've witnessed police taking some, and we've watched those same boarders return on a daily basis. While we do our best to teach our children about stranger danger, due to the natures of the boarders' histories, we have been forced to explain to our young girls such topics as sexual assault, what a sex offender is, why people might want to target minors for sexual abuse. Since then, we've also been exposed to such topics as drug-related crime, abuse, prostitution, assault and battery, what a bounty hunter is. I think y'all get the picture. We purchased this house many years ago with the goal of becoming a part of this community. And one of the reasons we sought out Temple Terrace was because we thought that it would be a great, safe, and friendly place to raise our children. In those years, we've established friendships with neighbors on our street. We developed a very strong family friendship with the neighbors next door to 510 Hibiscus Drive. And since then, we no longer go down there just because we feel that it is unsafe. We've had to take away independence that our little girls have earned. You know, things like bike riding, walking. It's just been very scary for them. We love Temple Terrace in our neighborhood, but we feel like we've lost friendships and safety, and mostly we feel like we lost our community, and it's sad for us. It's almost like we're mourning for this neighborhood that we grew to love, and now we feel like we've lost it, and we're doing our best to get things straightened out through code enforcement due to the many people living in this dwelling that, as far as, you know, we're concerned, is not supposed to be rented out, especially to this many people. So thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next to speak on the issue of 510 Hibiscus is Mr. Jim, I believe it's Bunton. If I'm incorrect, please correct me. Please name and address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Jim Butine. I'm at 516 Hibiscus Drive. dogs at large, domestic altercations, drunks wandering into our carports, 26 police calls in the last 6 months, dogs attempting to attack our pets, verbal harassment when walking past property, bounty hunters, drugs, arrests, stabbing, loud yelling and cursing in the middle of the night that wakes neighbors up. All of the above describe 510 Hibiscus Drive and what we neighbors have been living with for the last 9 months. Referencing the city manager's remark at the April 18th council meeting that they don't need to make it any bigger than what it is, just how big does it have to get? Just how big? You want to take a body out of there? Referencing the city manager's follow-up remark on May 16th council meeting that the problem was resolving itself, 2 boarders were incarcerated. They were both out of jail and back at the property when you made that comment. And that's not a solution. 2 meetings with the city manager, and the last meeting was on May 5th, included code enforcement director. Neither offered a plan of action to clean up this property. There are 5 regular boarders, plus the owner, living in that house, and usually 3 to 4 what we call floaters. They're in, they're out, somebody new comes. It's very fluid. We have Michael, the sex offender. Ronnie does drug spice and is referenced as the boyfriend. Richard, known to county animal control, as arrested for impersonating an officer. Ed claims that works at Hooters in another restaurant, but he doesn't, but he does wear a Hooters t-shirt every day. Dana, per county, hooked on drugs and painkillers, filthy mouth, and reported to be a prostitute. And our current floaters are Straw Hat Man, young skinny guy, and new guy with dreadlocks, who's very large and looks like I wouldn't want to mess with him. None of these people are related to the owner or each other. Our Temple Terrace police officers know that, and they're wonderful, by the way. When we ask them where they live, they say they live with Crazy Lady. One very adamantly declared it was her house. Housing Ordinance 8113, Item 6, limits the number of unrelated adults in a single-family home to 3, one of which is the owner. I have a simple yes or no question for the city manager. Is the city enforcing that ordinance at this address? Obviously not with that many people living there. We want a solution. We want our neighborhood back. We've spoken to the officers. They go, they take out, more come in. It's constant turnover. We know we're dealing with mental illness with the owner. She has mental health problems. We understand that. The element that is being brought in, the element that they bring in because they bring their friends over now, it's not good.
Thank you, Mr. Button.
Thank you, Mr. Button. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to items that are not on the agenda? Oh, I'm sorry, Carol. Carol Dell, please, name and address, and you have 3 minutes. I was moving you over too quick. I didn't see, I thought, I was looking through, I didn't see you back there.
That's okay. I was hiding in the corner. Carol Dell, 1309 North River Hills Drive. And I also want to speak about 510 Hibiscus and the alleged criminal activity, the code violations, and the dogs running wild in the community. Although this home is not in my immediate neighborhood, it is in our city, and I have a concern for that. I know people who live on Hibiscus. I am friends with a family on Hibiscus that have 2 small girls, and their quality of life is affected by this activity. And I just hope that the city, the police, the code enforcement, whatever it takes, working together, working separately, can find a solution to the problem at 510 Hibiscus. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on items not on the agenda? Please come forward and state your name and address, please.
Good
And you have
evening.
3 minutes.
I'm Mary Nell O'Dowd. I live at 518 Girard Drive. It's hard to follow the last few speakers, but what I intended to do, it kind of fits in with that. I wanted to encourage each one of you, city council members, county clerk, officers, to seek the good of this city. Seek the good of the city, not just the infrastructure, but us as residents, our children, our young adult children, whom we wish would move here and see this as a good place to live, to work, to grow, and to be a community. I'm a fairly new resident, not quite 4 years. And I moved here because, well, I worked for a business here, and I've been out of state for a number of years, and I just fly back and forth. And when my husband and I considered where to move after a stint in Virginia, we chose to move to Temple Terrace. I'm a native Floridian, so I have sand in my shoes. And I saw Temple Terrace as being much like where I grew up in Coral Gables, with strict code enforcement, rules related to 510 Hibiscus that would never fly in the Gables at all. It wouldn't go for 7 days. In Key Biscayne, where we most recently lived, the same thing. So I wanted to speak to restoring Temple Terrace as that desirable place that I thought it was. And it obviously used to be, but it's getting a little tattered around the edges. I think you would agree. And speaking to that, also redevelopment. I wanted to encourage you to stick with what I understand was the original plan for vertical mixed use. Not a Lowe's, not another gas station. We have plenty of those, and they seem more than adequate when I need to fill up. But I would like a place, and I think a lot of us would, where we could shop, where we could meet other people in the community, where we could have events. That's what I'm used to, where I grew up, in Coral Gables and Key Biscayne. And it lent itself to really building the community together instead of being tattered. And that's what I see now. I just see a lot of people tearing at the fringes of Temple Terrace, and it grieves me a lot. So I want to encourage you to stick with the plan and seek the good of this beautiful city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other people who would like to speak on items that are not on the agenda? Are there any other people who would like to speak to items not on the agenda? If not, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, number 4. Thank you for all the public comments. Number 4 is communications and petitions. There are none. Number 5 is the consent agenda. Mr. Stevenson, will you explain the item listed on the consent agenda, please?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Item 5A on the consent agenda is a request to modify a resolution that was adopted in November of 2016. And it's resolution 152-16 for the purchase of 5 police vehicles. Says a modification of the resolution consists of a change in the delivering vendor from Don Reed Ford to Peacock Ford. Recent anticipation of the delivery of the vehicles, the city was notified that Don Reed Ford had been acquired by Peacock Ford. Since the issuance of the original purchase order. The purchase price and state contract for the acquisition of 4 vehicles that are ready right now to be delivered remains the same and intact. And we're asking for modification just to change the name of the vendor. The order of the 5th vehicle has been canceled due to the acquisition, and the city will need to reissue a new purchase order under state contract 251-000-16-1 to Garber Ford at a cost of $26,046.25. Funds for this purchase are available on account 160-1421-521.64-11 as originally anticipated. That's the extent of the consent agenda, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there anyone in the audience who would wish to address the council on this item? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address this item? Seeing none, if the consent agenda is acceptable, I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Gorlich. Second by Councilmember Ross. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion of accepting consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Consent agenda is approved. We're moving on to item 6, public hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. This is going to be a resolution calling for a special election of the office of mayor, As I talked about a little bit earlier, we're going to go into this more in depth here. Mayor Linebaugh submitted his resignation to the city clerk effective May 24th. Pursuant to Section 305 of the Charter, the office of mayor requires a special election because no election for mayor is to occur within 180 days from the effective date of Mayor Linebaugh's resignation. To adhere to this requirement, the city has scheduled the date of the special election to be held on Tuesday, originally September 12th. This may be subject to change, which we'll talk about in a little bit, subject to the consent of the Hillsborough County Supervisor elections. The candidate qualifying period for the special election will be noon, July 10th, 2017 through noon, July 14th, 2017. Section 5 of the resolution also allows for the council to decide if it wishes to hold early voting prior to the election, and if so, the dates for the early voting will need to be determined subject to the consent of the Hillsborough County Supervisor elections. I'd like to turn it over to the city attorney to elaborate a little bit more on the process and what's going on.
Mr. Vice Mayor, so as you've already indicated with Mr. Linebaugh having resigned under the charter, the Vice Mayor takes over the duties of mayor and acts as mayor temporarily through the time period that a special election is held in accordance with Section 3.05 of the charter. There are certain sections of the Florida statutes that need to be satisfied in the Florida Election Code in order to proceed with holding a special election. One of those is Section 100.151, which requires coordination with the Supervisor of Elections Office. The resolution that you have in your agenda package is a resolution that provided a date of September 12th. It was based upon my initial discussions with Mary Helen Ferris, who's here from the Supervisor of Elections Office. Subsequent to the time period that the agenda package had to be put together, became clear that that date would not work with the Supervisor of Elections Office. We do have from the Supervisor of Elections Office, Peg Reese, and from the County Attorney's Office, Mary Helen Ferris, who are both here. Ms. Mooney is your city clerk, and your the city's elections official, and myself have been coordinating with the Supervisor of Elections Office for the past couple weeks. The dates that have been provided to the city as being available dates to hold a special election include August 15th, October 3rd, and October 10th. In discussing the matter with both Mr. Stevenson and Ms. Mooney, holding a special election in August would include holding the election at a time period that many people are on vacation. I think the three of us collectively didn't think that that would be something that the City Council would find to be acceptable. It would also push the qualifying period to opening up immediately in order to satisfy dates. As a result of that, what appeared to be something for consideration of the City Council is holding a special election instead on October 3rd. If we held a special election on October 3rd, then the qualifying period that would be appropriate for that date would be a qualifying period of noon on July 24th through noon on July 28th. The qualifying period for a special election does not have to be the same as you would have for a general election. In fact, there are circumstances where for special elections, the qualifying period can be as short as perhaps 24 hours. Considering that your code provides a 5-day period for qualifying for general elections, it would seem appropriate to use the same 5-day window for qualifying period for this special election, which results in the dates that I just provided to you. To the extent that you did find an October 3 date for the special election to be date acceptable, a runoff election could occur on November 28th, 2017. That's based upon my discussions with Ms. Ferris. You want to have at least 50 days or so after the general election that you would have the special elections, you would have a runoff date. So this would give us a time period in order to coordinate the runoff. So there's a draft resolution that was in the package that provided certain dates that were based upon a September 12th date that is not acceptable to the Supervisor of Elections Office. The new dates that I provided to you are things that are up for consideration. You don't have to go with those dates. You could, in fact, push the election earlier into August, or you could hold it later in October if you wish to do so. Although I've got Peg looking that maybe that August date wouldn't work so well. So I think the recommendation from the Supervisor of Elections Office would be to hold the election at some point in October. The earliest date in October would be October 3. The one issue that's up for consideration, and it's a public policy issue for you to make a determination on, would be whether or not to hold early voting as permitted by Section 101.657 of the Florida Election Code. You don't have to provide for early voting. If you don't provide for early voting, one thing to keep in the back of your mind is there will be voting by mail. You can provide for early voting, and if you wish to provide for early voting, then that's one of the issues that I would have Ms. Mary Helen Ferris come up and discuss with you how that would work, the dates that she would recommend the early voting to take place. I believe that the recommendation would be to have it in one precinct, but that's really an open issue for you to decide. So with all that being said, the issues for really determination are the date of the special election, the qualifying period, the runoff date, whether or not to have early voting, and if you do have early voting, what the time period for the early voting would be. And thankfully, we've got representatives from the Supervisor of Elections Office to make sure that those dates are acceptable to the supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. First, I'd like to thank everybody from the Supervisor Elections Office for being here and working with our staff to come up with a solution to a problem we've never had before, as far as anyone can recall. We'll probably have a couple of questions coming up as we get into discussion of this, but before we start our discussion, I would like to ask if there are any comments or questions from the general public who would like to address the council on this matter. Seeing none, we are open for a council discussion. Councilmember Gorlich.
I have several items, so please bear with me. My first question is to our city clerk. You had given us a budget some time ago. Did that budget, the number that you gave us, did that include early voting or no?
It was $1,260 for the early voting for, I forget how many days. For 3 days, $1,260.
Okay, so the total budget you gave us included the early voting?
It did.
Okay. A suggestion I'd like to throw out to everybody is that if you look at the qualifying periods, that's right in the middle of summer and most vacations. If we do it a little bit later, school starts, I think, the end of August, somewhere's in there?
I wish.
And when's it start?
The very first of August.
First week of August?
Yeah.
The first, actually the first?
Right there, that first.
Okay, so if we did it later, 10/10, that's qualifying period would be right when everybody would be coming back for school anyway.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion, is that we do it later so that we know everybody's back with their kiddies.
And Mr. Pergolich, to the extent that you did want to choose an October 10th date, which I think is one of the dates that Supervisor Elections Office found to be acceptable, you could hold the qualifying period from noon on July 31st through noon on August 4th with a runoff election on December 5th.
Yeah, we've got the dates here.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you
we
had
got the dates, thank
okay.
you. But having said that, I mean, I guess we want to give everybody the absolute opportunity they can. When would be the early voting? Would it be the week before, or?
And I'd ask
if you'd like to come on up and address any of the questions council has, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Peg Reese with the Supervisor of Elections Office.
Mary Helen Ferris with the County Attorney's Office representing the supervisor.
So as to early voting, it's completely at the discretion of the municipality. The state law allows there to be up to 15 days of early voting starting before the election. I don't know a municipality that would go that broad. City of Tampa, for example, does, I think, 7 days. Plant City did 3 days. So I would suggest if you wanted to do early voting, and as I talked with Ms. Mooney about the budget, you look at possibly doing 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I don't think Sunday would be that fruitful. I can share some numbers with turnout for the most recent primary election, which I think would be the good analogy. So you could consider doing that. The early voting site that we generally operate for voters in this area is at the Temple Terrace Library. I would suggest that would be the single location. Our offices, both in Brandon and downtown, also would be available for early voting for any eligible voter.
That's all the questions I have for now. I may have some later.
Do you have more, David?
Not right now. So when would you suggest, how soon in advance of the regular voting would you suggest that we do it?
Early voting?
Yeah.
It would be, so Tuesday's election day would be the preceding
Weekend.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all the questions I have for now. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions
No,
regarding?
I'm fine with those dates. They sound, either the 3rd or the 10th worked for me, so I would have no problem making a motion to set the dates for, if you're ready for a motion.
Well, my only,
You have another
if you're
question?
going to make a motion, I would prefer if we use the 10th, because like I said before, that way we know people.
That's where I'm going.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would like to move that we have the qualifying period, July 31st through August 4th. Election, a special election on October 10th, 2017, with a runoff scheduled for December 5th, and to have early voting the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday prior to the October 10th election date.
Motion by Councilmember Donahue, second by Councilmember Ross. It's now open for further discussion. Anybody have any discussion on the item? I would just like to say, I thank everyone again for all the efforts they made put forward in this. It's a circumstance I don't believe the city has been in before, certainly not since our new charter was enacted years ago. While I would like to push for the August 15th date,
Sorry, Bob. Sorry, Mr. Ross.
I realize it would be ultimately unfair to our community for anything as far as getting the word out to everybody and getting as many people eligible to vote as possible. As we know, in special elections, most of them run about 20% or so of what we normally have in a major type of election format. So I'm in agreement with the motion, and if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Thank you very much for everything, efforts that have been put forth into getting this resolved. Okay, let's see, we're moving on to next. I know why Kim has so much space up here, because there's a lot of paperwork. We have council business. Councilmember Gorlish.
I have two items that I would consider old business, but we don't have a category for that on the agenda. So, you're up to you. We can wait till after new business, or I can do it now.
Do it now.
Okay. I guess it's directed to either the city manager or city council, city attorney, rather. What is our status on the Burncheck residents?
You're making reference to the River Hills home?
Yes.
Or Bancheck?
Yeah, Burncheck. Yeah.
Mr. Bancheck did not file an appeal within the time frame that he was supposed to. We are bringing to council a resolution next meeting on the 20th, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with a demolition contractor. We've got bids already. He's waiting for the go-ahead to start demolition of the building.
Okay. And same question on the Holland case?
That I will defer to Mr. Connolly on.
On the Holland case, the trial court's decision granting summary final judgment to the city was upheld by the second DCA. We filed a motion for prevailing party attorney's fees and costs against Holland, and we've reached out to the IRS, which filed a tax lien about a year. I don't recall the exact date, but at some point after the foreclosure action was filed, a tax lien was recorded in the public records. So we are in the process of trying to obtain confirmation from the IRS as to subordination of the tax lien to the city's position, both with regard to the principal amount of the fine and interest and attorney's fees. We don't want to go forward to spend the time to have the court determine the specific amount of attorney's fees until we know from the IRS the city's position of superiority over the tax lien. So the motion has been filed, but as far as setting that for an evidentiary hearing, we don't want to spend the time and effort to get that done until we get a determination back from the IRS.
I know it's somewhat up in the air, but you have any clue as to when we might hear back from the IRS?
I've been speaking with my colleague who does the tax work. He expects that we should be hearing back from the IRS within the next few weeks, although we don't have a specified time period that they have to get back to us. Okay. So we will be pushing it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, is there any other council business? Councilmember Ross.
I have a couple things. Chief Kemp, could you come up for a second? I'd just like to thank Chief Kemp and your staff and all the firefighters for their work and outstanding performance on the tragic apartment fire that we had in our city about a week ago. I know that we had one resident that suffered, that was killed in that, but it could have been much, much worse. The fire was very, very large. It was contained to 3 buildings. Very easily could have spread to many other structures. There's houses nearby. There's other apartment buildings. So although we did lose one resident, we could have lost many more and been much worse. So please extend my thanks and on behalf of the city to your folks for that.
Thank you very much. I also want to say that it was a conglomerate of help. I called the city manager. He was there within a couple hours. The police department, police chief showed up. PIO was there. I used Public Works. We had to use some of their machinery. I called the water department. We had to pump the pressure up about 3 to 4 different times. Amir also came on to make sure that we fenced off the area, because once the fire was out and we were getting ready to leave, it was pretty dangerous. So I've worked here for about 9 years now, and I'm very proud that our guys did a phenomenal job. City of Tampa helped out, county helped out, but the group of all the city employees that came together and assisted me in a long 14-hour night, I just wanted to say that, and thank you very much for everybody that helped. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Stevenson, one more thing. We recently, and I know everybody got a copy of this, but as the liaison of the Riverwatch Task Force, I'm a little deeper into the loop on this maybe. We had some photographs taken by one of our residents that showed what appeared to be several code violations that are only observable from the river. You wouldn't be able to see these things from the street. Now, I know code enforcement is short-staffed now, so I know you can't probably do much right at the moment, but once they're up to speed, would it be possible to re-implement the program whereby code enforcement officers on a regular basis ride with the police department on their boat and look for code violations that are only observable from the river?
Yes, we'll initiate that again. We used to do that a long time ago.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not quite sure why we discontinued it.
Well, you've got a lot going on to it. Thank you.
Yeah, we can.
And one last thing is I'm not sure the proper format, but I'd like to move that during the time that Councilmember Boss is performing as mayor, that we compensate him at the rate of pay as mayor. It's not that much different, I realize that, but it seems to me the right thing to do.
No, we're good. Thank you, but we're
Well,
good.
if you decline it, I'll
I will
withdraw the
I will
motion.
respectfully
but-
decline it, but
Okay,
thank you
very well.
much.
Well, I just thought that was the proper thing to do.
I can't afford to bump in the tax bracket.
It'd be an extra $8 a month or something, but.
That's
okay.
exactly what it is, though.
Yeah, it's about $8 a month, but.
Just enough to
we're
hook
okay.
you up.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank
Is there
you.
any other council business?
I do.
Councilmember Donahue.
I do. We actually have the we still have speakers here who came to talk to us about the issues on hibiscus. I too want to know why what we need to do to stop this situation, since our code is very clear about who can rent in a home. So how do we go about solving that one issue? There seems to be multiple issues there, but that one seems to be one that should be easily resolved. So I don't know who wants to come to the dais, if it's a code compliance officer or if it's Mr. City Manager, but I think that the neighbors would really like an answer, and I would too.
I wish that I had a definite answer to give the neighbors. It is not that easy to do. I'm open for suggestions. Ms. Donahue, if you've got an answer. We are not sitting back on our heels, not doing anything. The police have stuff going on. Code enforcement has stuff going on. Short of bringing a code case against the owner for multiple residents or multiple occupants in the building, I don't know how much good that's going to do. She's pretty much ignored all the other code cases. I know that's not what the neighborhood wants to hear, and believe me, I share your sentiments. It's not in this situation that we're comfortable with either. I just don't know that there is some definite thing that we can offer up at this time, you know, short of going and dragging people out of the building. We've been the transient situation of people coming and going, disappearing, coming and going, and other people. It's difficult. I've dealt with this problem in another jurisdiction where you had actual renters and you had actual contracts that people are renting space in a building. That's a little bit easier to take to code board and say, here's some proof positive. I mean, if these people are coming and going, I'm not quite sure that we have much that we can do, but we can initiate a code case anyway. Again, I don't know what good that is going to do, to be honest with you, if anything, but we can certainly get it on the books as a violator of a code of ordinance. So we had a discussion this morning, Chief Albano and Mr. Damian and myself, about this and how to proceed with this. And there are several issues over there that we're working on some stuff that we can't share some information to address some of these problems over there. So, Chief is available if you'd like to hear something out of him, and certainly Mr. Damian as well. You know, if you would like to hear something from them. So,
Well, I know we have a code that appears to be very strong. So if it's too strong and we're not going to, if there's nothing we can do about it, then why do we have it as part of our code? And I know you're working on it. Please understand, I know you are, but whatever it takes, if you have to file a code violation every single time you see it, then file it. At some point, the dollars will begin to speak, and then we'll move into the next phase. But I really feel bad for this neighborhood that they're having to do this. And it also sends a message to other neighborhoods that they don't have to follow the rules. They can just rent to whoever they want. I mean, so far, the world has gone into the rent world, and it doesn't seem to have collapsed because of it. There are an awful lot of really wonderful people out there who are renting houses and becoming part of neighborhoods, but this is not one of them. And I don't think that we need to let people have a pass on this. So I appreciate that. Mr. Ross, thank you for bringing up the river, because that was on my list as well. Do we not require houses on the river to have addresses on the back? Would that not be a good idea?
Voluntary.
It's voluntary.
Yes, it's voluntary.
Okay, so I'm guessing the ones with the dilapidated structures don't have an address.
Well, we
Yeah.
would, yeah, we'd be able to identify them, I mean,
Okay.
even without an address.
Okay. I know you said that as soon as we can, but I think as soon as we can is probably now in the dry season. So we could bump that one up, because those pictures were really sad. And for the people in the audience, it painted a picture of the river that I'd never seen before. And I'm sure that there are people who are on the river all the time. I see Mrs. Dell back there smiling sadly. She knows what I'm talking about, because she lives on the river, and I'm sure you're not one of those properties, Mrs. Dell. I can tell. Yes. But anyway, I agree with you, Mr. Ross, and I would like to see this ride along, if that's what we're going to call it, to happen now rather than later. So if you can bump that up on the list of to-dos.
Water may be too low to take our vehicle out there, or our vessel out there right now, but
Yeah.
we'll address it.
I mean, we have photos
again.
already, so
I
if we
think-
can use those.
I think the pictures were valuable for us to see some of the stuff, and the water's low enough to identify some of the debris, if you would, that would normally be covered up. So it would be a good time to attack it. I need to make sure and identify that some of those pictures are in fact all in Temple Terrace as well. So I don't know that they all are, but We'll get it,
Okay, I mean,
we'll
we
get something
have
working on it.
photos for you if you need them to start.
I'm sorry?
We have photos. that have-
I've got those
okay,
photos.
You have them too?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Bill
All
had
right.
shared those with me as well.
Okay. And then, I don't know if this is going to come in your report, and if it is, then I'll wait. I know we were talking about setting a CRA meeting, and we have this calendar in
Yeah,
front of us.
I'm going to try to
Is that
bring
one
up
of
some
your
discussion
items?
in
Okay.
city manager's report.
Then I'll wait. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any other council business? Just to piggyback on what Ms. Donahue said, I know having worked with the Marine officer out there before, that when the river is high enough for him to go out there, he does make note of these violations that occur. Obviously, with the rain we've been having lately, hopefully it'll be easier for him to get the boat that we have that can get out there. Years ago, we had a pontoon boat. It was a little bit easier to get out into lower river levels. We don't have that anymore, so I'm sure that he will make an effort to do this. And I just have 3 quick items to bring up. I don't know, Charles, will you bring up the library book later in your report? The library fundraiser?
I had planned to, but.
Then I'll leave that,
you're
then I'll
more
leave
than
that
welcome
out.
to.
I only have 2 then. Because that's a board I sit on, and they had some really positive things this last meeting. Another board I sit on is the Hillsborough County Affordable Housing Advisory Board, which the Board of County Commissioners was taking a vote on today to redefine the membership of that committee. So we should be getting information on that. It's going to revamp it down from 21 members to 11. So I don't know what they've done with it, but we'll find out as soon as the Board of County Commissioner gets their vote ratified. It could mean changes for how the position sits here in the city. So there's going to be some changes to some of the positions. And also, I handed all the council members a packet from the Hillsborough County MPO planning for transportation regarding a public hearing. That's Tuesday, June 13th, 2017 at 6 p.m. at the county center. This is regarding the Transportation Improvement Program, the 5-year planning. In the past, because it does involve the former Tampa Bay Express toll lanes discussion and what is now being rebranded as Tampa Bay Next. If anyone has, our council members have any issues or discussions regarding this program, I will be at that meeting having to cast, in my new role, having to cast a vote on behalf of the city for these things. There's packets with stuff in there defining it. I believe if anyone wants to go and look at the MPO website, there's a PowerPoint display on there which will talk about some of the projects for the different various cities. So, and that will be on June 13th at 6 p.m. if anyone wants to go to it. My understanding is the last one went to 2 a.m. in the morning, so
Sign me up.
you're next.
Sure you don't want that $8?
That might cover the parking fee for that day. Is there any other council business? Seeing none, we're going to move on to new business. The first item, the city manager will explain this. This is the commercial solid waste internal audit. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. In an effort to continue stabilizing our solid waste program, there was some information provided you to from Mr. LeBlanc. It was attached to the agenda item in order to provide information to justify an anticipated purchase of a new front-end loader to replace the 2004 commercial collection vehicle that we have in our fleet right now. As promised in last year's budget adoption, there was some discussion as far as us looking at and analyzing the whole program. I think at that point in time, I promised that we would in fact do that before we move forward with the purchase. We have in fact done that on a couple different avenues here. One with looking, excuse me, one looking at whether or not we can bring the program back into the black, and the other looking at maybe farming this thing out to a couple private entities that currently do business in Hillsborough County. The attached to memorandum from the Public Works Director each describes the program's viability if properly managed and properly monitored for performance. Staff promised at that time during the budget that again, that we would not make this purchase until we were comfortable that, in fact, the program works. Staff believes we're at that point, and we're comfortable with the fact that commercial solid waste can be made profitable to the city. We do believe, I've said this before, I don't think there's a problem with the program as much as there was just the management of it, and that has been rectified. Staff requests that we be allowed to proceed with the purchase of the commercial collection vehicle as anticipated in this year's budget, and the staff is available if council has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. There's really no action. This is informational only, but we open up for council discussion. Councilmember Gorlich.
I have a couple of questions. One of the documents you gave us was basically shows that the net income for the commercial solid waste program is roughly $308,000. Does that include the roll-offs, or is that just commercial dumpster pickup?
This is commercial solid waste and recycling, recycling.
Okay, so the dumpster, the roll-offs is not included in this?
No, sir.
What I would like to see is a couple things. I'd like to see the whole trash pickup program. Is the 308, if we're making $308,000, are the rates because we're subsidizing residential pickup and/or roll-off? Because if we're making $308,000 a year, maybe we ought to talk about lowering the rate for commercial pickup.
We can certainly address that at budget time, sure. If you remember correctly, we raised it last year.
Yeah, I know. But if we're making $300,000 a year, why do we raise it?
Well, you raised it last year in anticipation of it being run the same way that it was being run. I'm telling you right now, it is no longer being run that way.
Okay.
It is being run efficiently and effectively. This is the first time in 3 years you've got a full staff of sanitation collection drivers and collectors.
Okay. And again, I'd like to see where it stands against residential and roll-off. Because we got a couple things going on here. I know on the residential side, our citizens are very attached to the residential pickup. They see them not only as sanitation engineers, but as watchdogs for the city, and I get that. But on the commercial side, I think our commercial clients, they want the trash picked up, okay? And they want to pay as little as possible to get that service done. Okay, and if we're making $308,000 doing that, maybe we need to talk about lowering the rate. And/or if that $308,000 is also subsidizing the roll-off program, we've heard lots of horror stories about the roll-off program. We had talked about just giving it over to the city, giving it over to private industry. And let people that need roll-offs call for roll-offs. And there was another document here that you gave us that and I'm a little confused about as well. It looks like you had gone out to talk to people about turning over the dumpster program to just somebody independent, and that we would get some sort of 2% franchise fee. Is that right?
Yeah, the second part of going out and doing, the first part of looking at the commercial program was going out and doing an audit. You had a lot of accounts that weren't properly being charged. You have a lot of accounts that didn't have sufficient capacity. I'll give you some numbers here. There's 27 customers, or 13% of the customers that we had, that were being billed incorrectly for their service on the commercial bin. The second part of this audit, if you would, was to talk to a couple of the private carriers and say, if you were to do business here, would our businesses save money? And we reached out to Republican Waste Management, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. LeBlanc. We only got into conversation with Waste Management. Republic didn't even call us back, and we tried several times to have some dialogue with them. They didn't have good things to say about them taking over the program. In fact, one of the biggest things is their tipping fee is $68 a ton. Ours with Hillsborough County under an local agreement is $58. So if we go to commercial, privatize this to commercial, I mean, our tipping fee goes up $10 a ton immediately, and they don't do any commercial recycling. So there is an advantage to doing it in-house, and we do think that we can make money.
Okay. Is it $68 because they're paying us a 2%, they would be paying us a 2% franchise fee?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure that probably has something to do with their equation.
Because as I recall, the discussions, God, it's going back a year now. First of all, it wasn't for the dumpster pickup, it was for the roll-off to just privatize that. And I don't see any information on that particular piece of it. And secondly, if we were going to privatize it, we would privatize it. We wouldn't, the city of Temple Terrace wouldn't be involved at all. So that 2% franchise fee would go away, and maybe that makes the dump fee a little lighter than $68 a ton. The point here is, I'd like to see the whole trash pickup world of cost, so we can see whether or not, we're charging all this money because we have to subsidize residential. Are we presenting a cost-effective way to our commercial customers that makes us competitive in the market that people want to come here? And I don't get that from these documents.
Well, the answer to that question is yes, we are, and I do believe that. Now, we didn't look at the roll-off end of the business. We can certainly do the same thing that we did with the commercial pickup. Mr. LeBlanc maybe can offer up some. Ray, you want to talk about the roll-off business? I know back several months ago, the attitude was that we were losing business and losing money on the roll-off again because of the way it was being run. We had the Addison apartment building under construction. They needed 8 roll-offs. We couldn't even provide it. We couldn't provide the service to them. So in doing that and not trying to stymie their development, I had told the deputy director at that point in time is to let them go outside. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to hold up construction because we can't service an account. Again, that being said, you were working off of half your sanitation crews being temp labor. I hate to tell you this, but temp labor don't work out real well. All right? It's just the commitment's just not there.
Yeah, but it was more than that. It was availability of the dumpsters, of the roll-offs. It was the condition of the roll-offs when they showed up on site. Some of them leaked and had cracks and needed welding and all this other stuff. And it was the cost to the client that they felt, and we had some examples presented to us, that they could get roll-offs less expensive by independent contractors, and the same thing on the dumpsters, that we had people that had properties in Hillsborough County, in City of Tampa, in Plant City, and other places, that whatever size dumpster they were using, it was costing them less per month than the same dumpster within the city limits.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that that's totally accurate. Again, I think if you put this out into the free market, there are certain businesses that will negotiate better prices. I'll give you an example that we discovered when we did our audit. The 7 days, it's 7-star convenience store. We annexed those guys a couple years ago. They were never brought into our system of commercial collection. When Ray did his audit and went out there to all the people that should be on an account, first of all, they weren't on our account, and they were paying $350-some under the county program, and they got reduced down to $100 and some based on our cost. So we are saving people money. I think that our solid waste collection program, and again, I would have to look at the overall picture for the roll-off, which we have not done. But I think the residential certainly is there. I know that the service is there. We've now spent $200,000 to get our fleet back up and running and safe and on the street. We've got a full staff of sanitation drivers and collectors. I think that the residential and the commercial are there. If we're making too much money, then we probably ought to look at reducing. But I can't tell you, I don't believe that the commercial, this $380,000 in the black number is subsidizing the residential. I don't believe that's the case.
If that's the case, then we should seriously look at lowering the price.
I don't disagree with you.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Councilmember Donahue.
Mr. Bergorlich, you don't have all the figures. This doesn't mean that staff and all of the other costs, this is not $308,000 in clear profit. That
That's
doesn't
what he
have a
said.
place to go. It doesn't have a place to go. I don't believe that the numbers that we have in front of us, to me, are encouraging, all right? Because we asked you to do this, and you brought back the numbers. So now I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I don't believe these numbers. I mean, it sounds to me like we found some holes, and you've filled them. So I appreciate the work that you did to put this report together. And my question is, didn't we delay the purchase of something that we have in the budget for this report?
We have in 17 budget right now, a commercial, allocated funds for a new commercial vehicle.
Right.
We have delayed those until we were able to grasp our hands on the business to begin with.
Yes.
Okay?
Which is why
We've done
we
that.
asked you to do this. So
Um,
now we're going to ask,
Well, yeah.
I mean, so are we
I-
going to buy this thing or not, is what I'm saying here.
Well,
Do you
that's-
recommend do you need this vehicle?
Well, if you want to, if the city wants to stay in this commercial business,
Mm-hmm.
then I want to make my statement based upon 35 years. You need that vehicle within 6 months. Otherwise, you'll be back here saying, what are we
Right.
doing?
We're not.
I spend money like it's my own. If you want to stay in that line of business, you're going to need to be, even though we spent the money on the other ones, because the garbage comes every day, you're going to need that vehicle in 6 months.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is several months ago, we asked you, we postponed the vote on making that purchase that we put into the budget. And now we have the report in front of us, and we're saying, well, let's wait for the budget to make a decision, and that means that he's not going to get the vehicle that we promised.
June.
So,
Next month, we start the
Well-
budget process.
but he just said he needs the vehicle to keep up with the demand. I can tell you right now, there's a roll-off that's sitting on Mission Hills, that's sitting there. It's hideous, okay? It doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime. And, I mean, I don't know, I think, is this house being rebuilt by a single guy who shows up every Saturday and works on it? Because nothing appears to be happening. And that hadn't been happening before when we were in charge of the roll-off. So as
We
soon
still
as
are.
we start pushing it off to other people,
We still are in charge of roll-offs.
well, we're not in charge of this one.
Well, let me, if I could, give you a little history on it. In 2000, when I came to the city, they had a roll-off, they had half a truck, and they had a handful of the roll-off containers, 20-yarders and 30-yarders. Waste Management was the backup provider for the city. If we couldn't do it, we faxed them a ticket and they did it. Well, within like 14 months, we pushed them to the side, there was no agreement. We bought a truck, we bought 20-yarders, we bought 30-yarders. And from mid-2000 to 2013, October, we did everything in the city because we could. And the previous finance director's not here, but they'll tell you, they called us first. I don't remember a time in 10 years where we couldn't do it. Now, if you go back to the Public Works Yard now, for some reason, along with the many other holes the previous administration put in your boat, a lot of those dumpsters, the 4,500, they got rid of those. They went somewhere. They're gone. So right now, as far as the roll-off program is concerned, we have the vehicles and the people. We need to make an investment in that, $25,000, $30,000, and you can have that control back. We charge a little bit more than some people on certain occasions just because of the disposal fee, not the trucking fee. But they called us anyway because we showed up. So to answer that question, that's another investment that we may have to make. We're trying to square away this commercial thing now, which was, I think it was intentional. I don't see it any other way. I never saw such a wrecked operation in my life. We put it back to where it was, where it should be, And if you folks want to stay in the business, we need a vehicle. If you don't do that, you'll have to get out of the business. You won't be able to service it.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Ross first.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that Mr. Stevenson had a response to one of
Remind
the
everybody, there are
issues.
3 prongs, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, but there are 3 prongs to this. There's the residential pickup, which we're not talking about. Everybody's happy with that. There's the commercial dumpster pickup, which is what we're talking about. And
Correct.
then there's the roll-off program. There's 3 prongs.
You have the special pickup program, which is an element,
All right, well,
it's an element of the residential.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, let me start by saying, and I'm not upset with either of you, but I'm upset that this was allowed to happen before you got here. According to your analysis, 13% of the resident, or the commercial accounts had incorrect service billing. 51% of these accounts either had billing errors, needed new dumpster switch outs, or service order adjustments, okay? So let me finish. Right. That's over half of them were messed up in some fashion. Now, to your credit, it looks like we've got our arms around this, thus we have $300,000 worth of profit instead of the boat sinking. What I would suggest we do in the future, I'd like to see these programs broken down into 3 business units in the budget as opposed to 1. Because, we're talking about, and I agree with Mr. Pogorlich, is this program necessary to subsidize the residential or the let me finish, or the roll-off, or which one's making money, which one's, because if we had 3 business units, we could see this one's in the red, this one's making surplus and we can lower the rates, this one, right, the rates are about right. Right now, when we've got all 3 mixed, you got to do all this work to figure out what's doing what. So I'd like to see that broken out. And another thing about this is why I keep harping on zero-based budgeting. I guarantee you, if we went through the city's budget line by line and did zero-based budgeting, we would find out that we have oodles of programs out there that this kind of error has crept into over the years. So in our budget, we keep looking to slash costs. They're hidden costs. We keep looking to save money on tires or something. You can't save enough money on that, but you can by zero-based budgeting. I keep looking at you like you run the budget, but you can by zero-based budgeting, right, find these hidden things that have crept in. This is a perfect example. So I know everybody's dying to talk, but let me finish real quick. I don't have a problem, based on your analysis, with us staying in the commercial dumpster business. I think this is a very good analysis. I agree with Mr. Pogorlich that we need to have the same analysis on the residential and on the roll-off. Because and I agree with him completely, if in fact we're making $300,000, we can probably lower people's rates a bit. We're not in this business to make money. We're in this to break even for the taxpayer. So, but we don't know that yet. You have more work to do. So, and if the roll-off business turns out to be that that's the one that's sinking the boat, we can still privatize that and keep the commercial. This is a separate thing. That's another prong. So we can buy this truck, stay in the commercial dumpster pickup business, evaluate the roll-off. We can still slice that off if that's wasteful. No,
I thought Mr. Stevenson had a response to one of the inquiries.
Yeah,
Could
I
answer your
think-
question, not answer your
Well, I
question.
think Mr.
Then-
Ross
then
kind of
Mr.
hit it.
Pogorlich.
I need to make sure that we understand that we do have 3 different categories running here. You've got the residential, the commercial, and then the construction roll-off. This request and this analysis is just the commercial. And the only reason that we did that was we promised you at budget adoption that we would in fact provide you this information before we made this expenditure. It's $250,000. I mean, it is a big cost. We do need this commercial vehicle. Whether or not we can lower rates is certainly something that we ought to entertain at certainly our budget workshops. We can do the roll-off. We can do the same evaluation at roll-off, and we ought to do the same thing for the residential moving forward. Our budget breakdown does take these as individual units. They currently are done that way anyway. I can't tell you the mess that we've discovered by doing this audit.
Well, let me just take everybody down a little bit of history lane here. This discussion started long before we were asked to approve the purchase of a dump truck. It was started before the last budget season where we were told, A, we don't know what's making money and what's not. We thought that residential was subsidizing commercial. At the same time, we were getting complaints from the commercial clients we have that the roll-offs don't show up, that they're crap, that the dumpsters leak, that they don't pick them up, that I can save money at the city of Tampa, I can save money at Hillsborough County. So this was a bigger picture problem than should we buy a truck, okay? And it goes back long before somebody said, well, we want to buy a truck, and we asked them to do an analysis. I asked for this analysis 18 months ago. Okay, we're now getting it. So don't tell me this is about a truck. This is about programs, okay? We're now being told that a program that we thought was losing money can make $308,000. Forgive me, but now I'm suspect of the whole thing. Because we were told before that residential had to subsidize commercial. But nobody really knew the answer to that. Before we decide to go buy a $225,000 truck, I think we need to look at the whole pickup program. Okay? And that's what I asked for 18 months ago and never got. This is not about a truck. This is about, are we overcharging commercial to support residential? Can we be competitive in the roll-off market when we're already being told we're not? If we can make money and we can be competitive and we can take care of our commercial clients at the same level we're taking care of everybody that loves our residential, I'm all in. But I don't know that yet. Okay, I don't know that yet because the full analysis hasn't been done. I've been asking for analysis on the roll-offs for 18 months. We still don't have it. We finally got numbers on the commercial pickup, which doesn't include the roll-off, and we're being told it profits $308,000. Now, I don't know about you, but when I went to school, profit includes labor, materials, and equipment.
I don't think it did.
Okay, if it doesn't, then it should tell me that. But right now, they're telling me that they're making $308,000, and that should be all. Is that number all in? Is that labor, material, and equipment?
It says net.
Yeah, so it's net. Okay, net is labor, material, and equipment. Unless you went to some school I didn't go to, that's what profit is. So they're telling me here that they're making $308,000. We don't know what's happening with the roll-off. We don't know where we are with residential. Before we make a decision to spend $250,000 on a commercial pickup truck, that you're right. If we're going to stay in the business, I trust you. If you tell me we need that truck to stay in the business, then I trust you. But I still don't know where we are. Okay, I just don't. You got to tell me what's it cost to pick up trash, and you got to tell me it costs X number of dollars. We make money or lose money on another thing. We've been told for years that we lose money on residential recycling. That we do it because it's a green thing to do. I don't know what that cost is. You managed to find it for commercial. I think we need to see it for residential too. And we've been talking for years about going to a single bin system. Okay, you shake your head now, that's probably not the way to go. So all these things, I got my ears open and my eyes open, and I'm willing to accept the right thing to do. But I don't know what that is yet.
Well, in 2013, I'm going to add to what you said. In 2013, before I retired from the city, the first time I budgeted for this truck that's in this discussion. I put it in the budget, and I flew off to Fort Lauderdale. That truck's still not here, which is part of this discussion, okay? And as many people know, in all words of kindness, I don't remember this kind of situation in 13 years. You've been led down a road of missed numbers, of not apples to apples, of let's spend $900,000 for garbage cans so we can pick up recycling. We can get you all that information, the true numbers. I would always turn it over to finance. I say, I collect the garbage, you collect the money. And for years, we didn't raise rates with dealing with Woody Garcia and stuff. We look at Tampa, we look at this, we look at this. We made $114,000 this year, we made this. We're not gonna raise rates. The whole situation has got out of control and landed back in your laps, and we are reeling that in.
I understand, and trust me, I'm not blaming you.
No, I
think you coming back is a blessing to the city.
I want to make you understand that, the Temple Terrace, if I was going to go in the commercial business today, this route, we start at Fletcher, we go up here to the river, we turn, we come back, and we go to the dump. It is one of the most, when you run it right, it's one of the most efficient serviceability routes that I've seen in 35 years. It's perfect. They had so many misnomers in here. They had the wrong size containers because they didn't buy new ones, small ones. So the truck's going around 6 times for a 6-yard pickup. He's picking up a 3-yarder, 2, whatever like that. It was an absolute disaster. I think the worst year in my previous 13 years, they said that the commercial made like $111,000. And Tampa was raising their rates. Don't touch our rates. So we can get you that information. This was the biggest chunk first because we're in city businesses 600 times a week. We're in somebody's parking lot, dripping trucks, screaming people, restaurants, the quality of the city, all that stuff. This is where we're at with this. I understand the other stuff. We have to get back in there and get you the accurate numbers. I know what they were, and all the years prior, the finance director got the information from commercial, from residential, and put it together. The special trash pickup lost money. We all know that. Lost money. And just told me, yes or no. I collect the garbage, they collect the money. And it all blended together. Where it goes after I collect the garbage, I honestly don't know.
I appreciate that, but my only point is that, this discussion occurred long before, hey, we need a truck. And we still don't have the full picture. I would just like to see the full picture.
Well, that's the full picture that I
For
have.
this, yes, but the full picture for all the freaking
Right.
trash pickup.
If I could just interrupt to try and, I get your point, it's heated, our discussion regarding garbage has been heated for years and years and years and all the kind of pickups. I think this is the kind of report you wanted on this part, I think the city manager heard that you're looking for the information on the other 2 or potentially 3 aspects of the program before we make a decision on the truck, which has been budgeted already, and that those information being provided. I think what we're hearing from staff is that there have been some discrepancies in the past in some of the previous administration of the programs and the operation of things that we were not necessarily made aware of, and that these things are only coming to light right now. So I think it would be appropriate for us to give direction to the city manager to come back with those reports as quickly as possible so we can move forward on an item that has previously been budgeted and make a decision based on all the circumstances and facts surrounding it. And then we can further debate the issue.
I agree.
Is there any other comments or?
No.
Mr. Chilora, Councilmember Chilora.
Thank you. This little session is why the city has the problems it has right here. We basically are lacking basic accounting principles. If this was a business, it would have failed. And I know you are doing a good job. One of the best things that could happen is you coming in here, because this council last year was about to make a $3 million investment in new garbage trucks. $3 million, guys. We just need the information to make a decision, because what happens is, if there's a problem, the people are going to call us. You have $250,000 for this truck. You have $250,000 for the club to pay. You have a $24 million debt that's coming due. I mean, there's money going out of everywhere. I would, for one, would need to feel more comfortable knowing exactly what we're looking at. My question is, okay, you're making 300. Where's that money going? Well, what are we doing with it? It's pretty simple. I mean, anybody basic, and I'm not saying you, Ray, or Mr. Stevenson. I'm just saying our accounting department should be able to tell us this is coming in, this is going out. The commercial's making 300 grand. Here's where it's going. We don't have any of those answers. Where is it subsidizing this? Is it going there? Is it going into reserve to buy a new truck? Where's it going? Those are the kind of answers that we need to know. It's not just about holding off a decision to buy a truck. I think it's more of a global decision to make. The decision is, do we want to continue down this path, or do we want to outsource it? Because based on the reports I see, and I know you've met with these people, but I know for a fact there's the contracts in Hillsborough County, the folks that do business in Hillsborough County pay less for garbage than the folks in Temple Terrace. I know that for a fact with facts and proof. Tampa, they're right there with Temple Terrace. Tampa does what Temple Terrace is proposing, to be the middle guy and make money. Hillsborough County says, get your own service, and you go negotiate with that hauler. But in Tampa or Temple Terrace, this is the rate. You want service, you pay for it, take it or leave it. That's the way it's going to be. You can't call another hauler. And I know a year ago, I think Mr. Stats is here, and I don't mean to call him out, but his son came up here as a contractor and said, roll-offs are less expensive outside the city, but we're required to call the city for roll-offs. Now, since you guys have come in and said, hey, we're maxed out, you can go outside the city. We just have to get our game plan together. That's all I'm saying. And before we make substantial investments, if we decide to go down the path of the city being in the garbage business, then we make that decision, that investment. But we need to have all these answers and all these facts. And we didn't ask you to bring roll-offs to us, the quotes. We didn't ask you to bring residential to us. So if you want to bring that to us. But with this information that we got saying there's $300,000 here, where's that money going? I'm not putting you on a spot, but that would be part of this assignment. So we have 300 grand, and this 300 grand is that subsidizing this part of the city or this part of the city. That would be a component. That would help us make a decision. But right now to sit there and say, let's do this, I think there's a lot of information lacking. If it was a business decision and you have a board of directors to answer to, those board of directors, if they were, savvy board of directors, they would want to know all those answers. Where's that 300 grand going? And where's the $250,000 coming from the purchase of the truck? Is that a reserve? Is that a budgeted item? Is that coming from the $300,000 we've saved? I don't need the answer now. I'm just saying that's the information we need. And once we have that, as Mr. Boss indicated a few minutes ago, gather that information, bring it to us, and we can make that. We're not trying to drag this out. I think what we're looking for is to get a good understanding of what's happening, because prior to you guys coming in here, this place was a mess, a big mess. And if you would have come in and fixed what you fixed, we wouldn't have had a garbage department. We probably wouldn't have had much of a city left if it continued the path it was going under the last 3 years of leadership that was here. So I would strongly urge, and so you're making $300,000, but you're still implementing an annual CPI increase to all the commercial people. The commercial people don't even benefit from special pickup if you have the once a year deal that you have. And they're paying more than the other folks in Hillsborough County. So if you want to look at the whole thing, look at the whole thing. But I think we need to do a review of the whole sanitation department and decide, do we want to go down this path? If we do, let's do it. But let's get all the facts before us, because I don't want to make a decision to buy a truck, and 6 months from now, we realize, well, we have these other expenses we've got to deal with too. We need to know all those up front, and we need to know where that 300 grand or 400 grand or 200 grand, whatever it is going. But I think it's more than that. You know just as well as I do that the front loader is the most profitable component of the sanitation industry. You pull up, you push a button, open the gate, dump, move on. It takes one guy to operate that truck. I mean, you got behind the scenes stuff, the dumpsters and the office help, but for the most part, you don't have the two guys in the back of the truck and back problems and everything else that goes with it. So this is, because for all my years of service to this city, roll-offs and front loaders were always the most profitable department in the city. They would always brag about, we're doing really good in these departments. It wasn't until the last 3 years that we're losing money, we're bleeding at the seams, our whole fleet is falling apart. So we need to find out, you've done a tremendous job. We sat here a year ago, before you came here, we were showing a video of our whole fleet falling apart. Got to get rid of it all. And we're going to lease these trucks. And the city manager, not this city manager, sold the council. They voted on a lease program for $3 million to lease a whole fleet. Then they came back and said, oh, we made a huge mistake. We're going to have to recall that. You don't make those kind of mistakes on $3 million. So that's where at least my frustration is coming from, that we need to get, and I know we're on the right track with you guys. I'm not hitting you upside the head with it. I'm just frustrated over what's happened over the past years. And I want the folks to know that we're not just delaying this vote just to delay it. We need information, accurate information, to support this decision, whichever way it may be, so we can continue to move forward. But I certainly would like to have some more information come back to us and know more about the roll-offs in particular, the fees and the cost compared to some of the other areas, and we'll make those decisions. I just wanted to lay that out there because this has been going on for a long time, and it wasn't just happened. We've talked about this numerous times. So I appreciate your patience with it, but I look forward to the report that that comes back to us, and thank you for what you've done.
A lot of the roll-off stuff, which we've done before, is about 70% of it is call-ins. We have a fixed, compactors and stuff. So you get a decent projection, and we look at new construction, what's permitted going on like that, that'll be close. But as far as the commercial, the only thing that, and I'll probably the last time I'm gonna say it, is that time is not on our side. This truck should have been here, 3 years ago. And the thing is that we can't stop what we're doing and wait till we get it, or wait till and I'm not, saying that in a negative way, but the truck was supposed to be here, in November of 2013. And we did repair the other ones, but, they're the most profitable, but they run the most too, okay? And to keep up with that program, you're gonna need something. I'd love to tell you that. We repaired the other ones, but it's like a paper cut. You can only put a patch on it so many times. So, somebody asked me, what's your drop dead date? I don't have one, but I'd say 30 to 45 days. It'd be beneficial to everybody to know because you affect, every business in the city.
I think Charles has something to add to this.
Yes.
Ms. O'Bank, thank you.
Let us regroup and get just some information, that you're asking for. We can do the same thing that we've just done with the commercial. So, if we can just kind of leave it at that, we'll spend a couple weeks, we'll do the analysis on the residential and the commercial roll-off and the special pickup, and we'll bring that back to council.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing a lot of things to light that were occurring in the past. And
Yeah, I apologize. This was kind of my agenda and my direction to Mr. LeBlanc was to look at the commercial.
We'll get to the bottom of it before we make any votes on spending money. I think that's pretty much what council is consensus on, so thank you.
And we'll look at the whole program and bring some information back to council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a status of the new code enforcement initiatives. I believe, Mr. Stevenson, you have Code Compliance Director Joe Damian provide an update on this. This is for council discussion. There's no action really required by council.
This is just
everybody.
This is just an information, and Mr. Damian is prepared to kind of give you just an update on some of the initiatives that we started a few months ago, and where we're at with those, and certainly some of the stuff that we're continuing to do. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Joe.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council. About 6-7 months ago, I came up here and you all had asked us to revisit some of the older programs that had been discontinued and look at ways to improve the code enforcement operations in the city. So I'm going to just go down item by item on the things that have been done. We initiated the neighborhood sweeps program again. We're now in its 6th month. On June 27th, we'll do the 6th sweep of the neighborhood. We've completed sweeps in 5 neighborhoods, although I only have numbers for 4. But on those 4 have resulted in 137 properties being identified with deficiencies, and we wrote 160 violations associated with those 137 properties. We have overall results have been very positive. We've had a high compliance rate with the initial notices that are provided, which is usually like a warning. And less than 5% of those cases that have been initiated have resulted in notices of violation. Most of those, we have been able to achieve compliance before it gets to a code enforcement board. I think there's only been two or three cases that have actually had to be referred to code enforcement board. We've also initiated the amnesty program that was approved not too long ago. To date, we've had 5 amnesty program applications actually been reviewed by the Code Enforcement Board. They were all successfully approved. The 6th application had the lien extinguished prior to us getting it there, so that one didn't even make the board. So they didn't even have to weigh in on that one. We have received 2 other amnesty applications that have been processed and will be heard at the next Code Enforcement Board meeting, and there's 3 more that have been possible that will be coming forth with probably either for the July meeting or the August. And I want to just clarify that June 30th is the expiration date for applications, but if they come in on the 30th, we may not be able to get them until the July or August meetings. We also provided orientation to the new Code Enforcement Board members and the existing members. That was done about a month and a half, 2 months back. We oriented them on the Florida statutes with the city attorney's help. We discussed the new lien reduction matrix and the new amnesty program and all the criteria involved therewith. We also went over the administrative rules and regulations that we use for the lien calculation matrix before it even gets to them. To date, we have not received any lien reduction petitions since the matrix was adopted. You all should have received, as I believe it was Exhibit A to the agenda item, a list of the distressed properties. We used to provide that every quarter. I'm going to definitely try to get that to you at least every 3 months. If we need it on a more regular basis, we can do that also. The overall number of distressed properties in the cities has been decreasing over the past year and a half. That is due to either investors or homesteaders that have been buying and upgrading properties either to resell or to live in. The most recent report showed that there's about 14 vacant or distressed properties that remain on the list that we're monitoring. Over the past year and a half, 21 have been removed from the list and have either been rehabbed or demolished. I think there's been 2 demolitions. And of those rehabilitated, have either been resold or occupied by the new owners. The administration is also working on a couple of ordinance, some new and some amendments, which we will be bringing forth in the future. There's one that I think we may have briefly discussed during one of my prior presentations. It has to do with having an administrating hearing fee for cases that have been compelled to bring to the Code Enforcement Board, and the property owners have brought them into compliance just prior to the hearing. We have many situations where we've got habitual violators that will wait to the very last minute and bring the properties into compliance just before the hearing. The city goes through a considerable amount of cost in both staff time and resources in getting the cases to the hearings. And then since the violations no longer exist, usually there is no fines or fees imposed. There's been several other cities that have used this very effectively, not only in South Florida, but in other parts of the state, where if you force the city to bring you to hearing, there will be an administrative hearing fee imposed because the hearing had to be held. But we will bring you some information on that coming forward. That will help us tremendously, and I think trying to mitigate some of the cases that have been coming forward to the Code Board. We're also working on a nuisance animal noise ordinance. The county recently adopted an ordinance, and again, I haven't gotten a lot of feedback from them as to how effective it's been, but the city attorney brought it to our attention when they were originally in draft form. I read through it. I made some recommendations to the manager that we maybe should consider something like that. We got direction to move ahead and provide a draft of an ordinance. I've been working on that over the last several weeks. It basically gives us a little bit more flexibility in how the violation is addressed. Currently, when we have barking dog problems, we take it to the Code Board. It requires for 2 residents to sign a petition. Petition is served by the police department. Then it has to be, the violation also has to be witnessed at least one more time by either a police officer or a code officer. Then we have to bring it to the board. Our experience has been the last 2 cases we've brought that it pits neighbor against neighbor. I think both parties get in very uncomfortable situations. They wind up airing dirty laundry on public television. And this ordinance, although it's a little bit more complex in as far as the amount of detail required to confirm the violation, it's very specific. and the dog has to bark for a certain amount of time, certain frequencies, but if you are able to document that, you can do that by video or by an officer witnessing it. But you can also have the complainants witness it or videotape the event, and with that evidence can be
Nowadays.
prosecuted at the court. That's one of the key elements that would be different. We would be going down to county court to prosecute the case instead of coming to the code enforcement board. But again, that's something that we will bring back to you in a later time and for your consideration after I have the opportunity to discuss it with the city attorney. We're also trying to work on a nuisance abatement ordinance. This is something the manager has asked me to do actually for quite a while. I'm a little bit delayed in working on that. There's a lot of municipalities and counties around the state that have ordinances in place that if there is a vacant, abandoned property, in most cases where the property owner is being unresponsive to nuisance type of situations, whether it's overgrowth of grass, it's a dilapidated fence, a condition where a painting of a structure may be completely peeling and falling apart, it provides the jurisdictions an opportunity to go in after duly noticing the property owners, to go in and abate the problem and recover costs and administrative fees and impose a lien on the property, but it would get the nuisance abated as opposed to allowing it to just continue to linger. That will be coming forth in the next several months. And finally, in closing, as you know, I am not an arborist. And since I started with the city, the Parks Department has been extremely helpful. The city's only arborist at the moment is working out of the Parks Department, Dana Carver. In order to alleviate some of his workload and also facilitate in times when he's maybe away, we piggybacked on an ordinance that was drafted by the county. And we created a tree application that in the event Mr. Carver is not available, a certified arborist can request a tree permit either to trim or remove, and based on his experience and his certifications, he would acknowledge that the work that's going to be done is consistent with city code, and therefore they can go ahead and do that without having to wait for Mr. Carver to get involved in that project. He is still available for those residents who wish to wait, but in general, it gives us a little bit more flexibility. That was put into place a couple of months ago, and so far it's been, I don't know how often it's been used, but I know that we've had probably 7 or 8 inquiries where arborists have actually gone and used the program. Other than that, I'm not sure where to tell you. We've been busy. I concur with Councilman Ross' earlier comment. I have been, I go to the Riverwatch Task Force meetings, and Mr. Luce forwards to me a majority of the photographs that he takes. I know that we've been working with the Port Authority and the city of, well, not the city of Tampa, but Hillsborough County, on a problem that's happening across the river outside of our jurisdiction with an apartment complex that apparently keeps dumping things over their wall. So we've engaged, at least there's 3 separate agencies involved in trying to see if we can resolve that problem. But we haven't really focused on the Temple Terrace side. I have had the occasion to go out with our Marine Patrol officer in the past to get a feel for the river. I had never been on it, but we've never really done any enforcement activity from the backside. So that's something that I think we will be looking forward to do. So I don't know if you all have any questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Damian. It's now open for a council discussion. Councilmember Ross, I know you have a question or just statement?
One brief thing, Mr. Damian, regarding the nuisance animal ordinance.
Yes, sir.
One thing, and I'm just speaking for me, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but one difference I would like to see in our ordinance from the counties is I know that Sheriff G agreed to take the responsibility on for enforcing this ordinance at night. The county is much larger than Temple Terrace. I don't think we need to do that here, and unless Chief Albano convinces me otherwise, I don't really want our midnight shift officers tied up in misdemeanor court all morning after working for a barking dog case and they spending the overtime. Misdemeanor court can take 6 or 8 hours to get your case heard. I would like, here, I think there's no reason why that couldn't all go to code enforcement, and you guys handle all of it. You're working during the day. If you get stuck in court, you're not on overtime.
And I think the challenge there, and the county works it where they give, the sheriff's office does it in the evenings, and the code enforcement staff does it during business hours. I believe for us, I mean, daytime stuff's not a problem at all.
Well, under the ordinance, it shouldn't be a problem anyway, because if video suffices
Yes.
or 2 sworn affidavits suffice, you don't need to see it anyway.
Yes.
So
And that's
let's
one of the
leave the
things
police
that-
out of it if we can.
Okay.
Are there any other comments from council? Thank you, Mr. Damian. Appreciate the
welcome. Thank you
update
very
on the
much.
issues. We're going to move on to item C, which is discussion on the status of the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club. Pursuant to notice provided to the Country Club Board of Directors on Friday, May 26, 2017, the board has met to address the termination of the operating agreement with the Integrity Golf Company, LLC, and IGC Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club, LLC. Board members are present this evening to share with council a plan to assume the responsibilities operating the club moving forward. I know a number of them on the executive board are here, along with the GM and Mr. Don Whittemore, who's going to go ahead and provide us what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor and members of the council. I wish it was under better circumstances that I was giving you this report, but I have to tell you, without getting into the details, there is a sense of excitement at Temple Terrace right now because we have an opportunity to make some changes and to get this club back to where it has always been for the last 100 years. As I look around the room and I see pictures of the golf course, and I see the fact that the city started in 1925, this golf course has been an integral part of this community forever. I have been a resident since my family moved here in 1968. My family has been here. My wife and I both grew up here. We have just recently reinvested in a new house on the river, and we are committed to staying here. And we're also committed, and I'm personally committed, to making this club work. I am the president. I didn't know I was signing up for this particular duty when I did so, but in any event. A little bit of background for the council and for anybody else watching. The club has suffered over the last number of years through a decline in membership. I think that's been symptomatic of what's gone on in the golf community nationwide, not just here in Temple Terrace. As we established a strategic planning committee and worked through various different options, we were approached by a company called Integrity Golf. And in February of 2016, the club and the city entered into effectively a management agreement with IGC, Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club, LLC, and its parent company, Integrity Golf Company, LLC, which provided for a number of things. Integrity was going to assume all management responsibility of the club. They would hire all employees, they would order all supplies, they would see to it that the employees were doing their jobs. The club agreed to provide all of the dues that we collected from our members, and Integrity was to use those dues and use the operating revenues from the golf club to operate the club. Importantly, they agreed to fund any deficit, and importantly, they also agreed to put in $250,000 in capital improvements to the plant facility and the golf course over a 3-year period. And finally, very importantly, especially to the city, they agreed to assume and make the payments under our revised and restructured loan agreement that the club has had with the city, which required Integrity to make a $125,000 payment on a quarterly basis to the city. That agreement was signed in February of 2016. Matters progressed over the ensuing year. Our board of directors met on a monthly basis, as we always have.
we would get reports from Integrity that things were going well, things were progressing. We would virtually always ask after each quarter, was the city paid? We were always answered, yes, the city is being paid. Everyone was happy, we thought. When I assumed the role as president a couple of months ago, it wasn't long after that I got a call from our general manager telling me that he was a little bit worried because the chief operating officer of Integrity had resigned. That followed the resignation of the chief financial officer of Integrity several months earlier. There were also some other employees at the senior management level of Integrity that had left. And we also were hearing rumors from various members, including some of our own staff, actually Integrity staff, but people that had been employees of the club before Integrity moved in, that certain vendors were not being paid. So I contacted Gene Garodi, who was the CEO. I think he appeared in front of this council back in February of last year to introduce himself and to help sell his company. And I said, Gene, we need to have a meeting. We need to have a face-to-face meeting. This is what we're hearing. We're concerned. We need to know what's going on and what the plan is. He was a little bit slow to respond. I followed up a few days later. At first, he was willing to meet, and it happened to be on Memorial Day, which we said that wasn't a good time because most of our executive committee was going to be out of town. So nevertheless, we pushed, and the response I finally got without a phone call or without any other communication was a letter on Friday, May 26th, terminating the operating agreement. The only explanation given was that Integrity was losing X dollars in its operation and that they couldn't afford to continue on. So we did a couple of things. I did a couple of things immediately. I contacted Mr. Connolly, with whom I've had a good professional relationship for a number of years, and told him what had happened. Our executive committee, which consists of John Nertney, James Chambers, and Rick Bishop, immediately contacted our general manager, Sean McCormick, and said, we need to have a meeting with you immediately. So we met Friday afternoon about 5 o'clock. Went through some items. What do we need to do to resume operation in order to keep this club active and running without any apparent interruption in management and who was running the club? So we discussed a number of issues. We then met first thing Tuesday morning, immediately after Memorial Day, with Mr. Vice Mayor and with Mr. Stevenson to further discuss the issue. And what we told them at that time was, this is our plan. This is what the executive committee is doing. We have taken this action. We have this short-term plan that is in process, albeit only 2 or 3 days old over the Memorial Day weekend, but that we intended to come up with a short-term plan and then a longer-term plan after that to resume operations of the club. We met and communicated virtually daily over the next couple of days with our general manager. And then finally, on Thursday morning of that week, we met again as a board, and the board approved a short-term plan to resume operations that were effective as of this past Saturday morning. Integrity's notice that they gave us was 7 days. So if you take a business that is generating a couple of $1 million a year in revenue and spending that much money and just walk and give somebody else the reins, it was not a small feat for us within a matter of a week to try to come up with what our short-term plan was. So some of the highlights of our plan was that we immediately rehired virtually all of the employees. And some of those employees, I think it's worth noting, included people that had been with the club for a long time, before Integrity. Sean McCormick has been our general manager for approximately 8 years. When Integrity took over, they hired him on as the general manager. His job duties effectively didn't change. Instead of taking instructions from the board of directors, he was now taking instructions from Integrity's management team over in Orlando. Sean has been instrumental in this process. Sean knows the operation of the club better than anyone. He knows the vendors, he knows the members, he knows everything about the operation. He has been instrumental in coming up with the short-term plan, letting us know what we need to do. So we hired all of the critical employees. And again, that also includes our green superintendent, who's been here about 30 years. So there's been basically a seamless transition of operation. We have provided for and obtained binding coverage for liability insurance, for property insurance, for workers' comp, and D&O coverage for our board of directors. That was no small task, given that Integrity walked from us without any cash in the bank. It's important that this council know that our board and our executive committee is absolutely committed to making this work. We have been giving very, very short notice. I think if you were a member of the club or if you observed anything about the club over the last week, you wouldn't even have known anything had happened. We started up our operations on Saturday morning as if nothing happened. We have had no hitches. We had a major event Saturday night for one of our members' companies. That member was kind enough to come in 4 or 5 days ahead of time and give us a deposit. So we had money to order food and beverages for his ordeal. So we are committed. As I said at the outset, I have seen an enthusiasm at that club and from the members, and I'm not a Facebook guy, but I am told by some of my friends who are that there has been an outpouring of support from the community even, that we're going to do what's necessary to keep this club going and honor our obligation to this community and honor our obligations to the city of Temple Terrace. We would welcome the opportunity to meet with the council in a workshop session. It's a longer-term discussion probably. We have worked very, very diligently to get a short-range plan in order, including working with Sean to come up with a very specific and itemized cash flow budget on a weekly basis in order to make sure that we can fund the operations. We are confident that we can fund the operations on a short-term basis. The bigger issue is going to be the same issue that we were facing 15 months ago, and that is, where do we go in the long run? There are multiple options. There are clubs in this county, Buckhorn Springs, for example, that had a member step up to the plate and say, I want to support my club, I want to support all my buddies that I've played golf with for 40 years, and I'm going to take over operation, I'm going to put my own money in, and that club is doing unbelievably well. That's the kind of discussion that is occurring. Individual members, a group of members, some kind of a public-private partnership with the city. The options are endless as to how we can make this work, but we are committed to make it work. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Whittemore, and the members for being here to speak to council tonight. Council, have any questions or discussions? We can start with Councilmember Gorlich, then Councilmember Ross, then anyone who'd like to let me know. As I look to the left or right, get a swivel head.
First, I gotta let you know my disappointment that we had a liaison committee put together when we put together that contract, which I was a part of. It wasn't until I got an email from city manager that I found out that you guys were meeting without the liaison me. So a little disappointed about that. I'm happy that you put together the short-term plan. I'm happy that you have a plan. I'm happy that on a weekly basis you have money to keep the doors open. But you have essentially 25,000 members in the city of Temple Terrace that are floating the loan for you guys. I didn't hear anything tonight that discusses that. What's your plan? And at least with Integrity, we were getting 125,000 a quarter. What are we going to get from you guys?
Well, that's a legitimate question, and it's a question that we anticipate. And all I can tell you at this time is, given the very, very short notice, our energies and our focus has been keep the club up and running in the short term. We are working diligently on trying to move forward to the longer term approach, and that is how to take care of the city. We did not know what the status of the payments from Integrity to the city was. We still aren't 100% sure that we know what payments have been made or not. We believe that the April payment was not made. And we are working diligently to try to get our members to step up to the plate, both through immediate payment of dues, immediate payment of past receivables, and voluntary contributions, quite frankly. There have been a number of members who have stepped up to the plate and said, we want to make this work. We'll give the club some money. How much do you need? We'll write a check today. You have not heard those kind of comments from our members in years, trust me. There was a lack of distrust all across the board. So all I can tell you, Councilman, is that we are working very diligently to make sure that we can honor that commitment, and we hope that we can do so.
Well,
I cannot tell you that there is a specific plan in place because there simply hasn't been enough time for that plan to be developed.
And I get that, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate your honesty being here tonight. But I will tell you that, at least for me, you know, we've been dealing with this particular problem for a while. The money that 25,000 residents are floating to the club could be used elsewhere. Okay, we have lots of needs. So whatever plan that you guys come up with, it needs to include payback to the city for the loan. It needs to include recognition that the citizens of Temple Terrace, although they may not all be members, they are all supporting the club through their taxes and through their taxes paying for this particular loan. We all recognize the value of the club. We recognize that it's one of our gems. It gets great reviews everywhere. I encourage people to play there when they can. But at least when Integrity was here, our citizens through that coupon book, and I know some of your members hate that book and hate the fact that strangers are coming in. But right now, I don't know what the rule is. I think it's once a month or 3 times a year citizens can play. You've had strangers on that course playing because of that coupon book. So, again, I think whatever strategy you come up with, and I don't expect you to have one tonight, needs to include paying back the loan and recognizing the monies that every citizen that lives in Temple Terrace, whether or not they're an active member or not, has been fronting to the club in order to keep the club on its feet.
Councilmember Ross.
First of all, I want to thank you for coming here tonight, and I want to thank you for taking on this responsibility. This is not your creation, and I understand that. So I'm grateful that you are here with your other board members to help solve this problem. So to make sure I understand correctly, I think I do because I've read the correspondence. So they pretty much left with a few days' notice and they took all the money. Is that correct? Did they leave you any money?
They did not leave us any money.
Okay, so they left.
The way the operating agreement was working was that as members would pay dues, checks would be delivered to the club, and those checks would be literally deposited or scanned into an Integrity account controlled solely by Integrity.
Right, which they kept.
Which they kept, of course. And then, of course, credit card charges and things like that were on an immediate pay basis also went directly to them.
Okay.
Temple Terrace Country Club has maintained accounts at Pilot Bank throughout, fortunately. But those funds were depleted. There was no reason to keep any money in them.
Let me get to my point of that question. Is, so you probably have bills coming in for things that they bought before they left.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I understand that your immediate focus here has got to be, let's get to Monday, and then let's get to June 1st, and then let's get to July 1st, and let's figure out then how to get to October 1st. I realize that. How long do you think, realistically, it's going to take you guys to get your arms around this and come up with a long-term sustainable model? Because this is going to be more than just, boy, I wish we had more members. I mean, this is going to take some accounting, and both sides of this book have got to even out. How long do you think this is going to take? Realistically, I don't know. I mean, 60 days, 90 days, 30 days, a week?
I would say at the most optimistic view is at least a couple of months. I will tell you that the work on that would begin much sooner than that. My intention is to create a committee that will probably consist mostly of our existing executive committee and perhaps a few other long-term members to come up with a strategic plan. There have been, as I think I mentioned earlier, several, we'll say, well-to-do individuals who are very interested in the success of the club that have already approached us and have begun asking questions, similar to in what happened at Buckhorn. Those discussions have already started. Now, how long it takes to put a plan like that together and ultimately, be able to come back here and say, here is our plan.
Okay.
I would love to tell you 3 months, but that's probably being
I
optimistic.
wasn't trying to lock you into a date. I'm just trying to get some feel for. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this, and I realize that you guys are trying to make lemonade out of a bunch of rotten lemons, and I get that, and I know you don't have a magic wand. But I share some philosophical problems with the taxpayers subsidizing the loan forever for a private club. And I belong to the club. I mean, I go there. But it's just not right to have the taxpayers forever. Now, I'm not saying we can't, help out once in a while, but forever subsidizing a club that's only open to certain select people in the city that pay for membership. If the taxpayers are going to pay for it, it's got to be public. So I realize that there's all kinds of different possible scenarios here. I just want you to know that I don't think David's the only one on the dais that wants to see some way to disentangle the city from this at some point, or some plan that provides us with some light at the end of the tunnel to say, well, we can't make that payment, but we can do this. And by this time, you guys can be out of this and we'll be functioning on our own. So I just, as you struggle through this, I know you know this, but I don't want you to look at the city as we're going to be in the red, but the city they can't let us go bankrupt. Well, yeah, we can. I mean, I don't want that to happen, that's obviously, but, it's just not fundamentally fair to have 25,000 taxpayers paying for a private club.
We are fully aware of those issues, trust me. Most all of us are taxpayers as well. I don't think that now's the time to debate that issue.
No.
We would like the council to believe, as we all believe, that there is some intrinsic value to the existence of the club to the citizens of Temple Terrace. It provides beautiful green space. When I'm up there hitting practice balls, I frequently have to wait as joggers run down the 10th fairway. Some of them might be members, some of them might not be. Our property values, I think, are all, they all benefit from the fact that the club is there and it's nice to look at. It's a beautiful community asset. So while I certainly appreciate the comment, and we understand that, trust me, we hope that the council also realizes that this is an asset of the city, that there is intrinsic value to those taxpayers who have helped in the past when we were having trouble paying the loan back. But we will work diligently to make it all work for everyone.
Well, thank you again, and thanks to your board.
I recognize the enthusiasm in the city as well, because I am one of those people who, on Facebook, and I've had a lot of people say to me, okay, well, you're a member, what can I do? Can I go up there and eat? Can I go, so I think while you're working through this plan, one of them needs to be a way to go to where, if you have to go on Facebook, if you have to put something out there, whatever it is, get the word out as often as possible to let people know that the rules have changed, that yes, they can come and eat, and maybe the rule hasn't changed enough, but I'm saying, if those rules begin to change, to open it to people who can be as supportive as they can in their own budget. There may not be people who can join, but they'd be more than happy to eat there on Friday nights, to go up and have lunch, to support the club in their own way. And then they all feel like they're part of the solution. So, everyone is thanking you for coming. I know you were real excited about coming here tonight and laying this out. Thank you for taking on this job. And it does sound like you're thinking outside the box, and that you have some people who are recognizing how how important this is to our community. We all know that, and yes, we all need to be paid. We're one of your vendors, unfortunately. But we're not telling you anything you didn't know already. But I guess what I'm encouraging you to, is to recognize that in some fashion, there are people who want to help. They just can't do it as a full member or even as a social member. So figure out a way to open things in the easiest way possible for that to happen.
Councilmember Shore.
Thank you, and Mr. Whittemore, thank you for making the effort to be here tonight. I know it's very hard, and this is a very difficult time for the club and the members that belong there. And certainly the club does bring value, but as some of the other members on this board, we hear the other side of that, the concern that folks have. I'm certainly, in favor of giving you some time to come up with your strategy and your game plan. I think there's merit. You certainly have a lot of folks with the ability in your organization that are members that may come up with a strategy to be able to salvage one of the assets of Temple Terrace, although right now it's a liability. If the golf course was not there, Temple Terrace would not be Temple Terrace, not in the same manner at least. If those were, just there was a different use there, it just wouldn't be the same. But at the same time, we have to try to find that balance where we can loosen the load and find ways to bring that debt down. As you've heard some of our discussions tonight, we have our challenges as well. So I'm appreciative of you coming in tonight and explaining your position, and that you guys are thinking outside the box and trying to make something happen. I know it's a huge undertaking. It's not something lightly. It's not like you're a small venture. There's people's lives at stake. There's values at stake. There's a huge organization and history to the city at stake. So I get all that, and I want to thank you for the sacrifices, because you're not being paid to do this either.
One of my law partners suggested that I should be, but I corrected him very quickly. Trust me.
We feel your pain up here. So, but certainly I know you do it for the good of the city, and there's no gain to it by you or any of the other members that are sitting here tonight. My question is more to, with that, I'm good. My question is more to the city, and that is going to be, what recourse, if any, do we have with integrity? And also, I want to make sure that in the future, and I don't know what it is, but if we're owed payments and we're not getting those payments, we need to be made aware of that. If in April payments didn't come in, the council should have got an email saying, hey, guys, guess what? Integrity missed their payment. Or in March, or whenever it was, because I didn't know, and I'm a council member. I mean, the people have voted for us to look out for their interests in the city. And if we're in the dark, we need to know what's going on. If, in fact, I don't know. I don't know if a payment was made in April. I don't know if it was made in March. I don't know any of that, but I would expect to know that information on May 1st. If the April payment wasn't made, we need to know that. And whatever that is, Mr. Conley, what, if any, recourse? Is integrity just a blank, a shell?
So the LLC that entered into the agreement is a shell. It's the agreement's guaranteed by its parent corporation. The entity that entered into the agreement is the club. The city consented to it and joined in as a third-party beneficiary. At this point in time, Mr. Whittemore prepared a letter to IGC and Integrity dated May 31, where he advised the club, or excuse me, advised Integrity that it did not have the authority under the terms of the agreement for a not-for-cause termination, which is effectively what they provided to the club and the city. I've prepared a document to IGC and Integrity that echoes the findings of Mr. Whittemore, that the agreement doesn't provide them the basis to do that, and what they've done in providing the city with that, in the club with that notice, is a default. So there is a basis to sue both Integrity and IGC. The issue ultimately is whether or not there is going to be something at the end of the day to collect upon. One of the things that many of us know is that the first people to leave a company when the company is floundering is the CFO. CFOs and controllers have a pretty good idea what the cash flow of the company is, and the fact that the CFO jumped ship a few months ago is not a good sign. So I will need to discuss with the city manager and come back to you to provide you with information under the terms of the lease with the club and also the note with the club, that there's certain obligations that the club had effectively turned over to Integrity. With Integrity terminating the operating agreement, those obligations now fall upon the club. And I'll be discussing with Mr. Whittemore and the folks with the club what their plans are with regard to bringing a suit against Integrity and IGC. And to the extent that I've said anything out of school from what I've discussed with Mr. Whittemore or what his expectations are, we can have discussions about that and bring that back before City Council. But there's a number of different things that need to be looked at. But the first thing is was really just keeping the doors open on the club so that we didn't have a closed door situation.
Okay, I get that. My question is, when did they, for what periods do they owe us?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the finance director
Yeah,
or
it's not his.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yeah, we have not received the April payment. We
Not
confirm.
received the April payment?
We have not
Okay.
received it.
Is the payment an obligation due to the club, and then the club pays us, or does Integrity pay us? You said we're a third
The
party.
payment's made directly to the city. So
From who? From
Integrity, yes.
But does Integrity have that direct liability to us? Is there a direct liability to the club?
There's a liability to the club and to the city under the agreement. It's to both of us.
Okay. Is there anybody personally guaranteed that
There's
agreement?
not a personal guarantee. There's a guarantee of the parent corporation of the LLC's debts.
Okay. And I assume you guys are all much smarter than me in the area of law, and they'll do discovery of some sort to find out what's under the mother company and if there's any. I certainly don't want to throw good money after bad money, but if he's owed, that's 2 months of payments, that all adds up, and I'm sure they owe the club lots of, obligations as well. So I don't want to get into all that tonight. I just want to know from the city standpoint where we were at and, how we were handling the deficiency there.
If I could, just a couple of other noteworthy facts. With respect to the April 1 payment, the club happened to have had its annual meeting within one day. I can't remember the exact date. We had an annual meeting on Sunday, and I think maybe the first was the Monday or something. And we invited Gene Garodi, who was the CEO, and his executive team to come over and make a presentation at our annual meeting. We didn't have the normal business to discuss and have the members vote on like normal, so we thought that would be a good idea. So he showed up, and I have to tell you, he was a classic salesman. Everything was rosy. He was committed. He talked about the capital improvements that were going to be made over the next couple of years, specifically talking about bunkering and other specific uses of their capital funds that they had committed. It was a very positive presentation by Mr. Grody. Little did we know what was going on, and that the very next day they ended up not making the payment to the city. So that's one fact. I can tell you that we were quite irritated now looking back on that. Secondly, one of the clubs that was paraded in front of us as a success story under Integrity's watch was Capital City Club in Tallahassee. Capital City Club is an old style, been around forever club, very similar to Temple Terrace, suffered with membership decline over years. Integrity had come back in, put capital improvements in, changed the club, and it was operating wonderfully, so we were told. And in fact, we were told from the club that that was the case as a part of our due diligence process. In an extraordinary coincidental situation, I happened to meet the president of Capital City Club this past Sunday morning on a golf course, completely unrelated to Temple Terrace or Capital City. And he asked me, when he heard I was from Temple Terrace, if Integrity was still managing us. And I had a strange look on my face, evidently. And I said, well, no, funny you ask. And he says, well, they dropped the bomb on us too. So we are not the only ones that Integrity has done this to. When we signed on our contract, I believe that they had at least 20 to 25 clubs under operation. I believe as recently as a couple weeks ago, their website showed that they had about 2 or 3. And the rumor mill is that they were assigning or transferring those contracts over to a different management company. So to the point, is it worthwhile going after them? We don't know yet. From the facts as I've heard them, it might be tough. But we're going to be looking at that.
I know you would.
So.
I just wanted to make sure that folks know that we're looking at all, options that are there.
Yeah, we'll take jail time.
And just a quick comment to kind of close everything up here, and thanking the club for coming here and making the presentation. Obviously, the Friday before Memorial Day is when everyone gets news about how things are going to change. Soon you'll be the vice mayor in charge and acting as mayor, and the club will be closing. And both our city staff and the club had a short week, Memorial Day, to deal with a bunch of issues to get things in place before June 3rd, to keep operations going, like maintenance of the course itself, because you can see how, in many places, how quickly, if something isn't cut on a daily basis, it becomes a complete disarray. If you ever drive by the dog track on the interstate and look into the center infield area there, you can see quite a jungle it is there when something isn't maintained. So to keep those things going is a beneficial aspect for the city. Kind of in our meeting that we had that early morning, this club does recognize, and I have been in Mr. Whittemore's position before as a president of the club, does recognize the symbiotic relationship between the city and the club, and is ever grateful for the city to make the adjustments they have in the last couple of years for the lease agreements and amendments regarding payments to the city. I will agree with, but also during that time, we did discuss that the city needs to protect its agreements with the club also, and that there are certain things that the city has a right to do and doesn't necessarily give up those rights to do those things, but knows that the city, the club reporting to the city is a very, very short time to get all the ducks in a row, and there's a lot of them that have to be done to take care of keeping things open and operational. I will agree with Mr. Whittemore that there is a lot of conversation that I've been privy to from some members about a viable long-term solution that will be beneficial to the club and to the city in the long term. So I think while those things may not always rear their head immediately, there's a lot of, fortunately in a private business, a lot of work that can go on behind the scenes, unlike the sunshine of government, where you can't have those discussions behind closed doors. You can in their situation. So I don't know if there's any other comments from council, but thank everybody for being here. I know it's been a long meeting, and appreciate the update.
Thank you.
The next order of business is we are going to, there is a job description for the city attorney job description. At the May 2nd City Council meeting, discussion ensued concerning a possible search for the in-house city attorney in lieu of continuing the contractual agreement with outside counsel. Council directed staff to advertise and seek interested individuals for the internal position of city attorney. At the meeting, it was noted that in order to advertise the position, the city attorney's job description would need to be created. That job description is attached for discussion. All council members were given the opportunity to provide insight to its content from a draft forwarded to each member. Changes and suggestions were incorporated into the final draft provided. Mr. City Manager, could you now go into what we're going to be discussing and potentially making a motion on, please?
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor, the direction that we had left from council with was to, was to create a legal or a legal, a job description for in-house legal counsel. We had done that. We had shared that draft, if you would, with all members of council. All members of council kind of weighed in on some changes and modification to that job description. It is attached to the agenda, I believe, with everyone's changes. And staff is just really looking for direction on what you would like us to do with that job description.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there any discussion from council members regarding the,
Do you need,
we don't necessarily have anything here regarding public comment, but I will certainly entertain if anyone from the public would like to speak on this issue. Seeing none, for council discussion, Councilmember Donahue.
now that we have a job description of what the city attorney would do, if we start looking at all the issues that have come before us tonight, I mean, we've had several people ask, where are we on certain things? We have, we have an election coming, we have issues with the club. I mean, we are not, I don't believe, in a position to change our legal counsel. And I would like to, and I will, make a motion that we put this on hold. I would like to do it indefinitely, but that's probably not the wish of council. But I don't think this is a time for us to be changing legal teams. We're in a very litigious situation on multiple arenas right now. So that's my motion. I would like to, now that we have it, thank you for making it, but I do not want to move forward, and my motion is that we do not move forward to seek other counsel, outside counsel.
There's been a motion by Councilmember Donahue to postpone this and not seek outside counsel at this time. Is there a second for the motion? I will second it for discussion. The motion is now open for discussion. Anybody, Councilmember Donahue, do you have any further discussion on it? Is there any other discussion on the motion? Yeah, I will just echo Councilmember Donahue's input. I was against voting for this to begin with. While I don't have any issues with the agreement itself or the legal description as provided here, I was opposed to this issue to begin with, so I'll vote no against this because I don't believe it's the path we should be taking right now. I don't believe it was the right path to go down in the beginning. Obviously, well, it's probably going to go down to a 3-2 vote would be my guess. Again, I will just say I have no problem with the draft of the position described. I just don't think it's the right time or the right place for us or the right thing that's needed to go forward.
I have another question.
All right, let's just have Councilmember Gorlich then return back to you for your
Let me just say
discussion.
this. We have a description I think we all agree on. The issue as to when a particular person starts can be a separate discussion at a later time. I think we move forward. Obviously, we're going to vote against the motion when it comes up for vote. To me, moving forward with this and finding somebody and then determining when they start or not start is a separate discussion. Typically, these types of decisions take more than a day, more than a week, and then you can negotiate a start time. I know in my personal business, it can take up to 6 months to find somebody and get them started because of other obligations they have with their other company, and they don't want to leave that other company hanging. So, you know, I don't think kicking the can down the road on this particular issue is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Donahue.
Before we do this, don't we need to do a cost analysis to see if, so we have a salary range, but that does not mean the cost of going to outside counsel. And I know that I asked Mr. Connolly to give me an idea of how many other attorneys and how many other types of questions we raised of his firm, and it was lengthy, and that's in the minutes of at least 2 meetings ago. So my question is, if you're going to go and do this, don't we have other things? I mean, we're doing the same thing with our sanitation department. Don't you think we should have a cost analysis before we put this out there to see if anybody wants to do this job? We don't even know how much this job is going to cost us if we go to in-house counsel. So that is another reason why I would like to see this postponed. We're not ready to put this out there. We don't know what this is going to cost us. So I urge someone to come over to my side and vote with me to postpone this until we have all the facts, which we only have one fact. We have two: a salary range that we're willing to offer, which is just that, a salary, and we have a job description. We have no idea what else it will take to legally protect our city.
Thank you, Councilmember Donahue. Is there any other discussion from any other council members? The only other discussion I have is I don't think it's a can that ever needed to be kicked, but we will call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to postpone the issuance of this job descriptions, say aye.
Aye.
All aye. You have a mayor who can vote now, or a vice mayor that can vote. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion is declined. Is there another motion to come before the floor?
I move that, go ahead.
We're going to get some discussion. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to talk about what we were supposed to talk about.
Go right ahead.
The job description.
Just go ahead.
Two-
Well,
two
we
quick-
could either do it with a motion
go
or
ahead.
do
No, no,
the description.
let 'em talk.
Either way.
Let him talk.
Two questions I have about this, the proposed job description. One is the ability to lift, carry, pull, push, and maneuver-related materials weighing up to 50 pounds. Is that requirement related to a job task?
It's
That is a generic thing, description or minimum qualifications that put in every single job description that we create
Yeah,
now.
but I think, I mean,
I
feel a
guess,
little awkward asking Mr. Connolly for advice on this, but I think these things are supposed to be related to a job task. In other words, is there any reason why an attorney in a wheelchair couldn't perform this job?
Not that I'm aware of, sir, and you know, in the time that I've worked, done work for the city, I don't know if there's any occasion that I've had to lift anything more than perhaps 10 or 20 pounds if I have a banker's box of documents that I'm taking to court that I need to drag behind me on something that might be 20 pounds or so, but otherwise, no.
I've never done a job description for an attorney before, but in the ones that I have been involved in, all the minimum for qualifications are tied to JTAs, job task analysis. So the other question I had, and this is more, I guess I'm going to get a definitive answer to this, but one of my suggestions that didn't make it in here was that this attorney be board certified for city, county, and local government work. And that didn't make it in here. I don't know if it didn't make it in here on purpose but I don't want to put myself in a corner and say that I would never take an attorney. I mean, if F. Lee Bailey applies, I'll take him even if he's, but I don't want to say that I would never hire an attorney that is not, but I don't know why we would. That just doesn't, it
Well,
seems like.
what if we changed it to someone that is or has the ability to become in
Well,
6 months or something?
Just.
I think the idea here was to not limit the pool.
Okay.
It just, and, you know, I don't know how hard it is to get certified. I don't think it's that hard, but I would say that, you know, again, the idea was to not limit the pool, and I don't have a problem with that requirement. I also don't have a requirement that they get hired, that they get certified within X number of months. So if you want to, I'm happy to, when I start to make a motion, I'm happy to amend the motion I was going to make to include adding that language that they either certified or have the ability to get certified within 6 months or something.
I think, okay, never mind.
Okay. Before Mr. Councilmember Begorlich makes a motion, is there any further discussion on the job description per se, outside of the two topics that you brought up, that could potentially be amended in the motion, or however the motion comes forward? Okay, the chair will entertain Mr. Begorlich making a motion.
Okay, I move that-
Councilmember Begorlich make a motion.
I move that we accept the job description as indicated in our backup package, and also add the language that the person being hired either has the certificate as mentioned by Mr. Ross, or has the ability to get that particular certificate within 6 months of being hired.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Ross. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to accept the language in the city attorney job description with the amendment put forth, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion is carried 4-1, I believe. Okay. That concludes some of the items on the agenda. We now come to the city manager's report.
Mr. Boss, if I could back up just a second, what would you like for me to do with this job description? I mean, do you want me to go ahead and proceed with advertising for an in-house attorney?
I don't,
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
That's all I need to know.
Well, if you're asking me, no, but
I mean,
if
you
we
accept
want
the job
direction, if we
description.
want direction from council, then I would go ahead then and entertain a motion from council to give you direction as to what to do with the job description.
We already had that.
We had that discussion.
no, we didn't. We had a discussion that said,
I move that we direct the city manager to move forward with posting this position and to interview candidates with the objection, you guys are making me mad, with the purpose of hiring a in-house attorney.
There's a motion by Councilmember Gorlich to advertise the position for an in-house attorney and to advertise the agreement we just voted on to approve.
I have a question.
Is there a second to the motion?
We both have questions, because we've already done this.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this again?
We had some, I would admit that we had direction to search for an in-house attorney. At that meeting, I suggested that we back up here a little bit and let us create a job description, because we did not have a job description to post. All I'm asking for is that with the discussion that I'm hearing, I need some clear direction from this council. You want me to move forward. You've accepted the legal description, or I'm sorry, the job description as with that little modification, and I apologize that it did make it in there. It wasn't done on purpose. But if you want me to move forward to post this position, that's all I'm asking. I think I got that direction.
I made the motion, but I don't see why we would ask you to put the job description together if we weren't going to move forward.
We did this because I specifically remember after the motion was made during the discussion began to morph into like we were going to research it, and I specifically said, wait a minute, we're voting to do it, not to research it. I remember saying that.
I agree with you.
So, I mean, if I need to, I'll second this motion, but I don't know why we're doing this.
Well, to be honest, I don't recall the specifics from that, and I don't have the minutes here in front of me or anything else like that. So if just a motion to reaffirm what previously was meant to clarify any lack of confusion. If it's already been done, then this is just clarification. I'm sure the vote will come out the same way.
In that case, I'll second it.
Would be
and I
my
know we have some
anticipation,
discussion.
and is there any other discussion?
I do. I still want to know what it's going to cost. We have no clue as to what this is going to cost. We don't know if this is going to be twice as much. I know it's not going to be any less than what we're paying Mr. Connerly now. So I would like to say, before we put this out there and say, hey, attorneys out there in the world who want a job with the city of Temple Terrace, we did this before. We asked people to bid on our job, and they did. And then we looked at it and we said, well, we don't want to do this. So how many times are we going to do that? But this time, we have no idea what this is going to cost. I asked before, does this mean we have to hire a paralegal? And the question was, well, we'll figure all that. Well, if it doesn't work for the sanitation department, it doesn't work for the legal department. So my question is, before you say, let's put this out there, you better have the money to do it. Because if you just throw that out there and say, hey, who wants a job, and then find out we can't afford this. Well, you can only cry wolf so many times before no one will apply. And then when you're at that point, when you really want to do something, why would they apply for us? So what I'm asking you is, are you really voting tonight to put this out on the streets, to tell HR, put this out on the website and tell, we're hiring an attorney, and we have no idea what this is going to cost us? We only know what we're going to pay that person. We know nothing else. So that's why I'm encouraging you to back up and don't go forward with this as aggressively as, for some reason, we're just determined we are going to hire an in-house counsel without any idea of what this is going to cost us. Even if you waited and put this into the budget for next year, I could go along, because at least then I would have some idea, but I have none. And we know the long list of attorneys that we reach out to right now and use through the process that we have under this contract. But we don't know what they're going to cost us every time we call another attorney, because our attorney can't do it. And they don't all, it's not like a GP. They don't come with, I can do everything. They might be able to do everything. They can dabble in everything, but I don't think we're going to have the experts that we've been able to call on by having a firm. So all I'm asking you to do is don't tell the city manager to put this out on the street unless you're ready to pay whatever it costs. And you don't know what it's going to cost. So I'm sticking to my argument on that one.
Councilmember Chilora.
Thank you, Mr. Boss. Certainly, we've been provided some information. I feel very confident that it'll cost less than what we're paying now. Currently, when our attorney is tasked with something and it's something beyond his expertise, he goes to another partner in his firm or another firm. And that's exactly what an in-house attorney would be doing as well. And that other partner is not free. You're paying for that partner, just like an in-house attorney would do, just like they do in Plant City. The mayor of Plant City told me specifically, he goes, I would not be the mayor if we did not have an in-house attorney. It is amazing the things they do. You open the door, the guy's right there. You work with them. Most things he handles. And you think your legal expenses are expensive now? Wait till you get in that RFP and you start getting all those invoices, because all that's billed separately. And that's going to be very expensive. So, to say that the in-house attorney is going to be reaching out to outside firms or outside lawyers, we do it now. We do it now. Well, I mean, Mr. Conley's a good attorney, but he's not an expert in every area of law when it's beyond his expertise, and we've seen it many times. He goes to a partner. That partner charges as much as him, or more or less, whatever it may be, but it's not free. We do it now. There's not one person.
I don't think so.
The record speaks for itself, ma'am.
Well, it does, but.
So you think so? I don't want to think. I want to know. And the facts are the facts. I mean, I'm not assuming. I do not want to make assumptions. I'm going by what I see. And years ago, when we went out for bid, the reason it backed off was because of political reasons. And that's why it backed off. But I think, my opinion, and this is why my vote has gone where it is I think we'd be better served with an in-house attorney. And that in-house attorney can reach out to a firm, to a private attorney, whatever it may be, and they will bill us just like they do now when Mr. Conley reaches out to somebody else. Mr. Conley's interested, he can apply for an in-house counsel. Whoever may apply, I just think we would be better served with an in-house counsel. The few folks that I've spoken to that have in-house attorneys throughout the years, and this isn't a rush, by the way. This has been talked about for over a year and a half, 2 years. When Mr. Sieber was here, he adamantly opposed it for whatever reason. But this has been talked about for 2 years at least. So it's not like this just popped up a month ago or 2 months ago. And I've always have spoken in favor of that. Nothing against Mr. Conley. I just think we'd be better served with an in-house counsel. And again, he's more than welcome to apply for it. Anybody else can apply for it. Whoever wants to apply for it. And you're going to have an in-house counsel with a salary of $130,000, $150,000, and they have an assistant. And right now, when Mr. Conley charges you, by the way, you get charged for a paralegal or wherever else goes with it. You don't get anything for free. We get charged for those services. You'll be in-house, and you'll be charged with those prices as well. There's no freebies out here. So, you know, I just want to clarify that. It's not like we're just out spinning in the dark. We already have an example to go by, and it's a firm. And this firm reaches out to different resources for assistance from time to time. And an in-house attorney will do the same. You're not going to get one attorney that knows everything. You know, there's not one out there. And if we think that, we're kidding ourselves. But he will be reaching out and he'll have a retainer with the firm or however it may work, and that's how it'll come down. But the way we do it now, the way it's going to be, except a firm, it'll be an in-house counsel. And that person will reach out just like our current firm reaches out to partners or people outside that firm, because we reached out to other lawyers or firms that are outside of Shoemaker Loop from time to time. And we pay them. It's not a freebie. It gets billed to the city, you know, and other means. So I'm comfortable. I feel that what we get is going to be satisfactory and very compatible. And with redevelopment coming up and, say, country club issues coming up, those are issues that, and in the interview process, if you feel somebody's limited on certain knowledge that we're getting ready to dive into, like, for example, the attorney we get needs to have a strong background in real estate, because that's got to have a lot to do with the CRA. And if he doesn't, then he shouldn't be somebody we select. So I'm not uncomfortable, and I feel that there is a good opportunity for the city, the citizens, and, you know, we don't have to try to schedule appointments, or you have somebody internally that you can reach out to and work with. So I you know, respectfully disagree with the comments you're making, but I think we're making the right choice, and I believe it's going to be a good financial decision for the city, and it's a fee that can be better managed, because the attorney gets his salary and that's what he gets. So it's not, if he's working, you know, overtime, you have a salary, and that's how it works here. If there's, with the current firm, if there's more hours, those hours get tapped onto whatever it is, and you get a bill for that. So I think there are advantages to going with in-house, and we're not limiting our abilities, our resources, our knowledge, because we will go out just like the current firm does. So thank you.
Okay, is there any further comment? I think everyone knows where everybody stands in here. I don't think there's probably a need for a comment further by anybody. I stand by what I said before. Chair will call for a vote on the motion by Councilmember Begorlich. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries 3-2. Mr. Stevenson, I guess you have your direction on that, and now if we can go move into the city manager's report, please.
Thank you, sir. Just a few things that I need to bring up and discuss with council. The Boys and Girls Club activities are underway at Greco. I think I sent out another invite. Council members certainly, as well as my staff, are encouraged to go out there, get engaged with the activities that are out there in the programs, and if anything, cheer the kids on. I know they've got a great program going on out there right now. That's for the next 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, 5 weeks. If you get a chance, go out there and take part in what's going on out there. The library staff has come up with a coloring book. I think everybody got a copy of that. It's a great idea. They're doing it basically for about $1 a book. They are selling them for $5, so we're making a little bit of profit on it as well. It's certainly done internally with no initiative, and the library group ought to be commended for putting something like this together on their own volition. They had no prompting here by anybody. So I'm pleased to announce that this year's efforts of Louis Betts and his group, and for the audience, Louis Betts is a lobbyist of ours that does some work for us in Tallahassee. We do pay him a fee in order to represent the Temple Terrace, city of Temple Terrace up there. This year, we're expecting to be the recipient of a $250,000 funds from the state. There were some interest in trying to secure some money to develop a new buddy baseball field. Carl, with our Leisure Services Division, has worked with the school personnel to get the land between the family complex and Lewis for the construction of this special field. The field, for those of you that don't know, the field is constructed of that hard rubber that certainly wheelchairs and challenged kids can play on safely. It's a great program that Russ Oberling puts together, and certainly our Leisure Services Department's really tied into this. Both Russ and Carl should be commended for their efforts with this, and certainly Lewis has assured me that the governor has signed off on this, and we'll be working towards getting some other partners involved to get a new field put together. Currently, they're using a field that is not very advantageous for their sport. So this is something that we'll be working on here in the near future. You've been given some hard copies of the RFP responses. I know that's a lot of paperwork to look on as far as the getting it electronically. We're in the process of trying to set up a date to review these and kind of continue with discussion on the redevelopment efforts down at downtown. If you've got any questions or you need some other information, please just let us know. We did have 8 responses, 7 of which came in on time. We had one that really was received about a day late, so we had to discard that submittal per the directions in the RFP. As we move forward with this, the meetings on the redevelopment, certainly we've got several things that we need to accomplish under the direction of the RFP, along with creating a short list and reviewing the submittals that we've got, creating a short list that the redevelopment agency needs to do, and then perform presentations from viable candidates that the CRA wishes to interview. Just a reminder, I'll be out of town next week attending a conference, and Chief Albano will assume responsibilities as city manager. He can get hold of me if needed, as well as council. I will certainly be on phone, but limited email. So if you really need something from me, please call me. That's the best way to get me. Most important, what we've got, if I can echo my thanks to the fire department, the police department, an awesome job on that fire. That was a very large fire. I got there about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was amazing to see everybody in action. It's refreshing to know that we have dedicated individuals like that that can respond and take care of a situation like that. Chief Kemp did an excellent job of coordinating everybody and was very well orchestrated. It was impressive to see. It's unfortunate that we had a fatality, but it was certainly very impressive to see our fire department and certainly our police department, who got there to evacuate the building before the fire department got there, and did an awesome job of evacuating those buildings. One of the officers told me they actually literally had to drag somebody out of the building because they didn't want to leave. They did an excellent job. Public Works responded with a backhoe in order to help after the fire was put out. So building department responded in order to get with the property management. Everybody did what they were supposed to do, and it was very, very well run. I'm proud to be part of it. More important, we've got a very busy summer coming up here with a lot of dates. We've got a lot of work. Not included in any kind of my schedules as of yet, or any kind of workshops for addressing the golf club issue, which we will certainly have to do at some point. I provided everybody on council with a calendar for June, July, and August. I had my assistant reach out to each of you and kind of give me an idea of what vacation time or what time out of the city everybody was looking at. If you review that, there is not much time that somebody sitting at the dais is not going to be available. We've got an awful lot scheduled, and rather than take up a lot of time, I guess I just got a few questions here. We've really got to get busy with the redevelopment. I don't want this to linger, but there are pre-scheduled dates on June 20th and June 27th that we had kind of predetermined would be in sync with our RFPs coming in and us being able to put the meeting together. There's, if you look at the calendar that I provided, there's really not a week that everybody is here. So
Yeah. I looked at
on
it.
top of that,
Well-
I've got budget workshops that we need to kind of get in sync as well. I don't know if, certainly workshops at budget are things that we've done in the past, we've done during the day, because they have a tendency to be several hours long. I just want council to be aware of that we've got a very, very tight schedule running here. And what I need to do is probably go back and regroup after seeing this, getting this rather late in the day, is to regroup and see what kind of dates we're looking at. I guess a question that I would have for council is that would Saturday be an open date or an available time that everybody would be in agreement to have workshops on? Other than that, Monday through Friday may be a little limited, and we may be doing without some people if we're going to have meetings, either redevelopment or budget workshop was. So, yes, ma'am.
Well, I looked at the calendar, and my question is, I know we have to announce CRA meetings, and you had been indicating that we were going to have one on June 27th. And I really don't want to miss a CRA meeting. And looking at this, we have June 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. These are how few days we're all going to be in town. And also August 1st, 2nd, 8th, 9th, and 15th. So the month of July, we're never here at the same time. So I agree with you on the Saturdays. My question is, because we have people who are out, I mean, all of us are out for weeks at a time, can you pull together that CRA meeting? This is to put together the short list. Is this correct?
Yeah,
I mean,
we
I think
actually
it
have.
requires everybody be here.
We actually have on the tentative agenda, which is obviously subject to change on a daily basis, we have a meeting scheduled to, for the evaluation committee to make a presentation to council. We pretty much have done that, and I've tried to get you this information quicker than giving it to you a day before the redevelopment meeting, or as we create an agenda for the redevelopment meeting. So there's a lot of information there that needs to be digested, and there's 4,000 questions I'm sure that's going to be asked. So we tried to get you that information up front, but the first meeting on the redevelopment submittals is really on June 20th, but it is basically nothing but to present the submittals to you in a meeting, in a advertised meeting. The 27th was proposed to be where the CRA would actually create a short list of people that, of projects that would then make it to the CRA for scheduling presentations.
I know, that's the one I asked you. That's why I don't want to miss that meeting on the
Well,
27th.
yeah, Ms. Donahue, again, this is a tentative agenda. This is why I'm trying to bring this up, so that
Okay, that's why I pointed out the
we
dates that
we
are,
can get all this covered.
well, now that we have them in front of us, you don't think we could meet before the 20th to hash it out and come up with our short list?
Well, that's when I'm out.
No, we're all together, we're all here. Oh, I see. Sorry, you're the blue line. You're right, we're never here. We're going to have some televised meetings.
You're actually not all here
That's
for
right.
3 months.
Sorry, Andy, I apologize. Yeah, I mean, it
It's going to be.
looks like August, and we can't wait that long.
Well, Mr. Chalura said that he's available. He's not going anywhere as far as he
What
knows.
is the-
And Mr. Pogorlich, in all honesty, gave me 5 days that he's out, but really he's only going to be scheduled 2 days, but he doesn't know those 2 days. So, again, until we know for sure.
What are the, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question here? What are the procedures for calling in and being on speakerphone during these. Is that a legal vote? Can you participate electronically in these meetings?
Well, we've done it with Skype. We've done it with Skype.
I'm not a Skype guy, but I can
You
call in.
could be,
I mean,
FaceTime, FaceTime or
I will
Skype.
tell you that, having done it, it's extremely difficult to hear what's going on. You almost have to have city manager repeat it, or have somebody up there repeating it at the mic. We've done it. I was the one that we did it for. We got through it. I think the other thing that helps is, if you know what the vote's is coming up, what the issue is, you can certainly email city manager, or I can email city manager, or Sherry can email city manager, their position on that. And that position can be read aloud into the record. I'm not sure that
Does
the
that
council.
constitute as a vote?
I don't think so, but,
Yeah.
but that's also.
Well, then.
Yeah. But, you know, and again, like Charles said, I've got, you know, weeks here, but I'm only gonna be actually gone 2 days. But I think we've had this thing on the 27th on the schedule now for.
It was not, it was put on
How long
the
has we had
schedule.
this 27th on the
Yeah.
schedule?
It was put on the schedule. There was nothing sent out that asked us if we would be in town when that was put on that date. Because I specifically asked that question of the city manager, where did this date come from? And he said, I had to come up with a date. So it was not, we were not
Well,
polled.
Then maybe it's,
But it wouldn't have obviously made much difference. Somebody is going to miss a meeting. I understand that. I'm trying to ask you, is there a date that we're all here, even if it is a Saturday? I agree with you, Saturdays
looks
might be
like
the thing.
Saturday, the 1st of July is the first Saturday everybody's here.
Well, that's too late to set up the, isn't it?
I'm not
For the-
here Saturday. That's my family time. So. Monday through Friday, I'm here every day. You can count me in, but weekends, I don't do city stuff. So that's my family time.
Okay, understood.
I'm here every day during the week. Saturdays, Sundays are off, but I think it's, Mr. Mayor, if I can say something, I think it's.
Good.
I think it's very important that everybody be present, have input, because I think we've been through that before. And even it has to, if these schedules are, everybody has their plans, even has to be on the phone. But your vote and your input could be counted. So you got to get this on. We can't wait 2-3 months.
Right.
So I don't want anybody to be shut out of it. Everybody's got to have their input and be privy to the discussion. If you can't be here, we do it. That person can get on by the phone. I think David didn't hear because I think he fell asleep because we had to wake him up once or twice. But seriously, I think that, you know, and I know Mr. Boss, Mr. Pergolich have both been here, but I think it's critically important when very important decisions are being made that everybody be present.
Yeah.
That's not fair to anybody to
No,
have a
it's
meeting
not.
when they're gone. So if you can't make it, it's a pretty, you know, filled up schedule. So maybe find a time that whoever is out during that period that they have a little bit of free time where they can participate. And maybe if they're locally, if they're at the beach, they can come back for a few hours, or if they can participate by phone. But you don't want to, you know, deny somebody the opportunity to be involved in that and have their say. I would strongly support that.
Well, the one meeting that I'll miss on the 20th, on that particular date, I'd be able to call in. It might be less than perfect, but I can, so I don't change the meeting on the 20th for me.
Are you local, or is it?
No,
far away? Okay.
I'll be up in the middle of the night where I am, but I'll be
Okay.
here. And if, so don't change the meeting on the 20th.
Just like, and the 20th is just kind of a presentation
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
items
right.
to
And
us. We're not really taking any official action on it. Would that be
Well, but it's
correct?
also a
Right.
council meeting.
Right.
Yeah, it's also council.
Yeah.
Just because it's not specifically addressed in the council's rules of procedure for attendance of Mr. Ross, I'd suggest you go ahead and make a motion now to allow Mr. Ross to attend that meeting by phone.
So moved.
Second,
To attend the CRA meeting by phone.
So moved.
That's on the 20th. There's a motion to attend the CRA meeting by Council Member
Well,
Pergolich for Councilmember Ross.
I think we have a council meeting that night too, as well, so.
For the CRA meeting, then the council meeting also to
Yes.
attend via electronically, since you will not be here. That's been seconded by Councilmember Donahue, that's going to be like a little amendment to our rules of order for this one occasion. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
Okay, is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion is carried. And I will look at my schedule. I could possibly be back.
I don't want to pry, but is the 27th, I know is the date that you're at. I mean, I don't want to ask you your travel plans.
I'm on
but-
the other side of the country. However,
Well, that's where I'm going
I
to.
can do the same thing. I can call in. I just want to make sure, like you said, I'll make sure somehow to call in if I can do that. I want to make sure that I'm part of the discussion and part of the vote. So
Right.
if you can't just send in your list of choices and let that be counted as a vote, then I will make sure that
Okay.
I'm here.
Well,
Okay.
so if that's, because I think you're going to be the same place I am, just on different dates. But if that's the case, then I would make a motion that we allow Councilmember Donahue to attend the meeting on June 27th electronically.
Can I clear this up? Mr. Connolly, can we just amend Mr. Ross's motion to say that whenever a councilman is not available for the months of June, July, August, that they're not available to be here in
There you go.
person, that they can call in and that suffices as a quorum?
I would suggest rather than amending a motion, just do a new motion to that extent, since you're going to have to move it and second it anyway.
Okay.
And perhaps ultimately modifying the rules of procedure accordingly
Okay.
would be appropriate.
Due to the extraordinary travel schedule of all council members this coming summer season, I would move that for all meetings that occur in the months of June, July, and August, that if a council member cannot make it, that it'd be acceptable that they call in or Skype or some other electronic form to be in attendance at the meeting, and that attendance will count towards the quorum and will allow that particular member, whoever it is, to initiate a vote on whatever issues come up for vote.
For all meetings.
There's a motion, and it's been seconded by Councilmember Ross to, we'll vote on that, and I guess
To
we
do it,
probably
we'll
have to
just,
go ahead and get rid of the first one then after that, but well, it's kind of moved. Now it's open for discussion.
Yeah. don't need
I think the city manager has a comment on it.
Yeah, we're talking specifically about the redevelopment meetings. I've also got some budget dates, budget workshops that I will probably need to feed to each of you tomorrow so that we can do some kind of notice. We really need to start within the next few weeks, at least our initial budget discussions. So I will be getting you guys some dates now that I know that what we're doing with the redevelopment, we can kind of work around that. Certainly redevelopment is one of those things that is real important to get and keep moving on. But as well as the budget workshops, I mean, we need to kind of get some of that scheduled as well. But I'll work with our finance director. We'll get some solid dates going here and feed that to you no later than tomorrow.
Hey, with that comment, is there any other discussion on this motion? Regarding the electronic communications viability of voting and participating in the meetings during June, July, and August. Seeing none other, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. I said aye also. Motion carries.
Let me just throw something out. For purposes of, law generally, you need to have a quorum present physically in order to have people appear electronically. So keep them in the back of your mind. Right now, we're talking about perhaps one person missing a meeting, another person missing a meeting. But you need to have a quorum physically present at the dais in order to hold the meeting and then have somebody appear electronically.
Just for the record, what constitutes a quorum under our new situation?
Quorum of the city council remains as it was, which is 4 city council members constitute a quorum.
4 city council members sitting at the dais.
Yes.
I have one more question.
I
Before you adjourn.
I think Councilmember, all right, Councilman Donahue, go ahead.
I just want to know, do we need, I know we have acting mayor, Bob Boss. Do we need to appoint or elect a vice mayor?
The answer is no. Under
Okay.
your charter provides for a vice mayor, and
Okay.
Mr. Boss at this point remains the vice mayor, and he's also acting mayor until such time as you vote Mr. Boss to be something other than vice mayor. In a regular city council member, he,
So stay healthy.
yeah.
'Cause you're
I
it.
believe my wife echoes that
You're it.
statement.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was
If
any
he knows somebody
thing
else
that
is
had,
gonna be gone, he's gonna be gone at the postponed.
yeah.
Councilmember Chiller, I believe you outside of the.
Just two quick questions, and the first one I want to answer too, because you touched on it, but maybe the next meeting, let us know where you're planning on getting the funding for to subsidize the payment that Integrity is making. So you don't tell me now, just at or us, just at the next meeting or sometime in your Friday report, because obviously that's going to come from somewhere.
We will work on that between the next 2 weeks. We'll come up with an answer.
The payment that was missed, was that a quarterly payment?
If we're not buying a commercial vehicle, we can probably use that.
Okay. That was a quarterly payment, though, that was missed, and April, that was a quarterly payment that was missed?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last question I have is in relation to the redevelopment you talked about. What are the brokers playing any role in this selection, not the selection process, but you have a committee? What role are the brokers playing? Just so we know, because I don't know.
Well, the brokers were actually part of the review committee when we opened up the packages.
Okay.
They were there to review it. They were there to comment. They gave us some of their input on, as far as some of the projects that were geared towards some special financing. They kind of give us some direction to maybe stay away from that, unless you wanted the thing to last for some time. By qualifying for federal money in order to build some apartments, for instance, there's a substantial commitment that the city's going to have to put in order for the developer to get some of those credits from the federal government. So they provided a little bit of information, and certainly at the 20th meeting, they will get an invite so that they can provide some of that information as well. They're engaged every week. They're engaged with conversation with us. So.
Okay, so they'll be present if we have questions.
Yeah.
From their background
Absolutely.
expertise when the time
Absolutely.
comes, and
Absolutely.
you know,
That's
just-
part of what we negotiated them to help us with, yes.
Okay, just, I would just as a open comment, I would just, and most of you guys know this, but caution that unfortunately all of our discussions have to be public. And sometimes if there's certain things that you want to pose to one of the developers, either maybe do it through the city manager or through the broker, so that information can't be used against you from one of the other folks that are in the run as well. So it's just, they have the advantage of going in a closed-door room and strategizing. Everything we say and do has got to be in a public forum, unless the advantage we have now, if the brokers are involved, they can do some of that, behind-the-scenes discussion to flush things out, shall we say, without showing all of our cards to the other applicants as well. So just, they're all going to be watching, whoever the folks that are interested are, and everything you say and do will be documented, and they will use it in negotiating tactics down the road when they come back to us. So that's why I was asking what role the brokers will be playing and, how that's working. So I appreciate that. As long as they're going to be present to answer questions, that'll be helpful. Thank you.
Is there any other thing for the city manager's report?
No, sir.
Okay, seeing no other, is there any other business coming before council? Seeing none, thank everybody else for attendance here. The meeting is adjourned.